like everybody's in, still joining. I guess they're still joining.
Missing the usual guy?
Yeah, he's in Hawaii.
Yeah. He told us ahead of time he wasn't going to be here. He's got a date, hot date in on Maui, on his fish house.
Nice.
Okay, I think we've pretty well populated for now. So let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the May 3rd monthly meeting of the El Dorado Hills Community Council. And with that, we'd like to proceed with our team leadership team roll call. So I'm going to go around on the screen here as I can see it. So Chief Lilly, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Michael Lilienthal. I'm a deputy chief with El Dorado Hills Fire Department, and I chair the public safety group. So I try and basically connect anybody that has an issue in the community with either the appropriate law enforcement agency or the fire agency or whoever out there can solve your problem surrounding a public safety type of issue.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. John Davey.
Hi, I'm John Davey. I'm the chair of the El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee. We are a group of resident volunteers that examine proposed development projects in El Dorado Hills and provide resident feedback to applicants, the planning process, the planning commission, and the board of supervisors.
Okay, so I'm going to jump to your cohort, Brian Tim.
Tim White, I'm the vice chair of APAC.
What's your other role, Tim?
I'm also president of the El Dorado Hills Fire Department Board of Directors.
Okay, that describes how incestuous this group is, but I'm pleased to see it, so thank you. All right, let's go to Richard.
Richard Ross, good governance, try to open windows and allow people to see how government works.
Excellent. Transparency is a big part of it. Yep, very good. CDAC.
Hey, Sita Burgess. I'm a registered nurse living in El Dorado Hills. I'm the Healthy Communities Liaison. So updating you on anything having to do with good health and wellness for our community.
All right, and Glenn.
Hi, everyone. Glenn Krakow. I am with the Community and Economic Development Advisory Committee. And so we work countywide with a broad representation of folks, hopefully helping the community grow in a safe way.
Very good. Cindy.
I'm Cindy Munt. I'm Supervisor Heidel's assistant, and I do the community information and outreach for the Community Council.
Very good. So we'd also like to recognize very quickly any District 1 commissioners or committee members. I saw Tita on there before. So Tita, could you recognize yourself, please? Isn't she still there?
Yeah, where'd she go? Let me see. Oh, there's, she's got her hand raised.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. Tita, please go ahead. I think you're muted right now. You just need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah, this is Tita Bladen, El Dorado County Commission on Aging. Hi.
Thank you, Tita. Anybody else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Only A, huh? Okay, all right. So very good. So with that, we're going to move to item 2, adoption of the regular meeting agenda. Is there anyone on the leadership team that has any proposed changes to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we're going to accept that. Public comment, number 3. This is the opportunity we give anyone in the public who would like to speak to the Community Council on an item that's not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so at this point. It can be a question, it can be a commentary. So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand or indicate otherwise. I think it's with 6.
Oh, if you're calling in by phone, just press *9 to indicate that you would like to comment. Okay. Looks we have Brooke first.
Okay,
Brooke Washburn.
go ahead, Brooke.
Brooke's not with us.
Let me see. Unmute, Brooke.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're good. Go ahead.
Great. So I was talking for a second and didn't realize I was on mute. Thank you all for the opportunity. So I wanted to raise an issue regarding the Supervisor Communications, specifically the Saratoga Way Finders DOT traffic analysis recommendations.
Okay.
I had an
I'm
opportunity
going to
to,
talk to that. I'm going to talk to that on the agenda briefly. So,
yeah, I had an opportunity to read through the materials, and something I noticed that's not in the materials, that's a specific concern for me, that wasn't taken into consideration as part of the grounds to possibly obtain a stop sign at that location.
okay, so
There are,
let me stop you for a second. Recognizing we're probably going to have other people like to comment, I'd like to ask you to wait till we get to Supervisor Communications on that, if you're okay, and then we'll open it up for everybody, because we do, if we allow you to talk, then somebody else is going to wonder why they didn't get a talk to speak. I know, to speak on Saratoga Way. Is that okay?
yeah, I just wanted an opportunity to speak on something that's not in the analysis or recommendation, so I can hold that until then.
Yeah, please do. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Stephanie Haley.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine, Stephanie. Go ahead.
Hi, yeah, I just want to make just a quick comment that obviously is not on the agenda, and thanks for taking my comment. On the Folsom Heights / Prima Road plan going in supposedly whenever into Stonebriar, that stop down there off of White Rock Road. We're following it obviously closely in our development and Rolling Hill CSD, making sure that the city of Folsom does not change it from a EVA road only, and just making sure we have some good support from our fire and sheriff on this road that takes place paved, and making sure it doesn't interrupt the Stonebriar development emergency evacuation, and making sure they stick to their plan and exercise with no bikers and walkers. I'm sure we'll get to
You're being muffled. We
Yeah,
can't.
you're going in and out, Stephanie, so we can't hear everything you're saying, but I know what the subject is, and I guess Chief Lilly, I don't know if Chief Johnson is on. Do you want to speak to Stephanie's comments? I know you guys have been very involved. The letter's been written. She's worried about the city of Folsom changing the EVA agreement that we have. Do you want to make any comment on that?
I mean, we're happy to meet with her again. I know we've had a lot of dialogue on this particular subject. We're definitely aware of her concerns, and I know from our perspective, it's an EVA. Beyond that, we'd be happy to meet with her again and speak about it some more.
Yeah, and just not making a bike and walking trail also, I guess, is the big thing.
Okay, so Chief, do you have Stephanie's contact information, or should we forward it to you? What's the best way to get you two in touch?
Oh, no, yeah, she has ours. We've had a significant amount of dialogue. So we definitely can have more. Stephanie, feel free to reach out again.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay.
Okay, so this is a phone, last 3 digits, sorry, 800. Can you unmute? 800?
Yep.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're fine. Thanks.
Oh, great. Okay. I just wanted to bring an issue that seems like a growing concern for us in the Silva Valley and Serrano Parkway area, which is a popular thing, I think, amongst younger people, is to have these very loud mufflers. And it's really bad around here between 7 and 9:30 at night. And it's becoming a bigger issue by the month. And I did put a call into the CHP Placerville to let them know, but they also suggested that I make it known to our County Board of Supervisors here.
Very good. We appreciate that. Do you want to voluntarily give us your name so we can contact you as follow-up?
Sure.
We get
Yeah,
information?
it's Dave Sills, and I live at 3301 Stonehurst Drive.
Thank you, Dave. We have had conversation with the CHP because we've had other complaints about it, and Officer Brown, as part of his report, can probably make a comment to what's going on. And obviously, there are limitations, but we do recognize it's I think a festering issue, I'll call it, for lack of a better term. So thank you for your notification and bringing it to awareness.
One more very quick thing. Our
Sure.
post office in town center. The landscaping is a disaster, and it's very unkept all the time. And I guess you have someone there from El Dorado Fire Department, El Dorado County, El Dorado Hills, actually. The only way we can ever get them to do anything about it is to complain about it as being a fire hazard. And it'll be a fire hazard here again in the next month as all the weeds die. But it seems like, and I've called McClintock's office as well, but it seems like deaf ears over there at the post office. I noticed Folsom has the same issue. I don't know if there's anything we can do to urge them to take care of the landscaping around there.
I did see somebody very early this morning weed whacking, but we do hear these complaints all the time about that. But there was somebody there this morning working on it.
And I think it's federal
Good.
property, so our ability to influence is the extent of what we have is to try to, encourage them to do the right thing. But beyond that, I'm not sure we have any jurisdictional authority within either the county weed abatement, the ordinance for open space preservation, basically, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say our vegetation management ordinance. I don't think there's anything under there that gives us the ability to influence federal property or state property owned facilities for that matter. But Chief Lilly, have you talked to anybody down there? Are you aware of our conversations with the post office?
Yeah, definitely a year-over-year problem. I'll go drive by and take a look and see if they cut the weeds like Cindy's suggesting. If not, we can request maybe that we'll get farther just by walking in and requesting to the postmaster.
The postmaster, I think, is the same postmaster in Folsom. I think they're covering both locations.
Got it. Yeah, I can give it a shot and see what we get.
You must have the same one.
El Dorado Hills is a satellite of Folsom, so
Yeah.
the gentleman who used to do it came over from Folsom, but I'm pretty sure he's retired. So, but yeah, they have a supervisor in El Dorado Hills, and that's where I would start.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I have before. Yep. Okay. Thank you so much.
Anybody else?
That looks like it.
All right, very good. So let's go on to item 4, and you've probably noticed there's 2 additional panelists with us this evening. So I'd like to introduce John Pomeroy and Todd Smith, both of who are District 1 representatives on our Veterans Affairs Commission. And they're going to talk to us about some of the activities that have been going on, and particularly with respect to what to anticipate for this year's Memorial Day. And we do have limitations, obviously, with the COVID restrictions and stuff, but I'm going to let us give you an update on that because I think that's an important thing for all of us to honor and respect and do the best we can to recognize the importance of Memorial Day. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to John, and he can go ahead and do whatever additional information, introductions, whatever, and then share the information with us.
Well, thanks, John. I appreciate that. And Todd, jump in whenever you want. I know you're cooking, but you're welcome.
Hey, John, just so you can take command of the ship like a captain does, I'll just introduce myself and then I'll speak after you're done. But everybody, thank you for your time tonight. My name is Todd Smith. I am the District 1 Commissioner for El Dorado County Veterans Affairs Commission. I've been on now my 9th year of service. I am a Navy veteran. I am a retired deputy sheriff, and our goal as commissioners, all of us in the county, are to give equal and the best service to all of our veterans, men and women who serve our country, to make sure that they get the assistance, support, and direction they need after service, and which helps our county and our family county move forward. So thank you again, and I will speak after John speaks. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. We have a kind of a similar thing going on here. I'm a Navy veteran too, and El Dorado Hills, he was the previous chair of the Veterans Commission, and I'm now the chair of the Veterans Commission. So El Dorado Hills chairs for the last, how many years, Todd, were you chair?
I was the chair 2 years and then re-elected, so 4 years total.
4 years. So we're continuing that tradition here. I will say that the Veterans Commission has been very busy this year. Some of the things that we have done, we have a new commissioner up at South Lake Tahoe, and that was something new for this commission, in that we didn't have representation up there for a long time. And when we got up there, we immediately started to talk to Lake Tahoe Community College and unearthed a whole series of needs up there, and have started, for example, a program which anyone on this call can be part of, which is a veteran mentor program, where you simply give your name, your email address, and what kind of area of expertise you have. These young vets come off active duty, and they're looking to maybe have a career in firefighting, or they want to start a small business. And we could use some people who would say, yeah, I'd be willing to answer a question if someone wants to know, this is my area of expertise. You know, it happens to be this kind of business, or it's legal, or it's fire, or police, or whatever. So we just started that. We've got 2 initiatives going on right now with trying to reactivate junior ROTC in our high schools. It's a great program for young people. It gives them discipline and direction. It helps them get into college, and it is a great program, and we'd like to see it come back to our high schools. We have a new program that we're working on right now, which I'll hold up a little graphic. El Dorado County Certified Veteran-Owned Business. Now, this is something we haven't yet approved, but we're working toward it. We're setting the standards up so that any business that is owned by someone who has been a veteran of any of the armed forces, including now the Space Force, can in fact, as long as they're honorably discharged, can in fact show their DD-214 or their ID card, and they're also their business license to El Dorado County, and be eligible for this symbol, which they can place on their door. It'll be a sticker, or to put on their website, and so forth. We issue some $175,000 each year of TOT mini grants. These are 2 organizations that are helping vets. They do not have to be veterans organizations, but they have to be directly helping El Dorado County vets. And this comes from the hotel taxes in the county. And so our visitors to our county are helping to seed this program. And this has occurred for many years. And we have another $35,000 in grants that'll be issued by the fall. And now's the time, in fact, to go to the El Dorado Community Foundation and apply. If you have an organization that's going to help vets or their families in some way, and it can be anything from hospice care to educational care to food to homelessness, housing, whatever it is. If you have a program, these grants are being increased to $5,000 each. They were down at $3,500 a grant. Speaking of housing, we just started a new committee because housing is such a critical issue in our county, particularly workforce housing at South Lake Tahoe, which has very little housing up there, and student housing up there as well. And we've started basically a housing committee to look at veterans, homeless housing, and so forth. Veterans have a lot of services available to them through the VA and through CalVet for housing, which other people don't have. But still, we still have gaps, and particularly where we have homeless vets, it's very hard to get them into veterans homes in our state system. We also have a Facebook page, El Dorado County Veterans, and we post information for veterans. If you have a relative, a friend who's a vet and would like to know about, for example, accelerated vaccinations, we've been posting that. Now we have more than half the state, I believe, vaccinated, but still there are a lot of people that don't know how to get it. And the VA down at Mather has been providing vaccinations not just to vets for many months, but also to the caretakers, that is their family members, even if they were younger, could get vaccinated to protect those vets. Additionally, I should say that I want to thank John Heidel and the Board of Supervisors for recognizing one member of our commission who's on the phone, Todd Smith, and also several deputy sheriffs from the county and numerous individuals who work at nonprofit organizations for saving the life of a homeless female veteran up in Placerville who deals with PTS from combat-related stress. And she was near death. And had she not been transported to Mather, the VA at Mather, everyone believes she would have died. And as a result of that, the Board of Supervisors recognized all those individuals who stepped forward to make sure that she got the care she needed, that she was saved, and that we're trying to get her into programs that'll help her get out of the situation she's in. It was nice to see how many panelists were on here that touched each of the areas we're dealing with, where there's homelessness, housing, security. We even have programs to provide defensible space around veterans' homes and to provide that kind of program. So that's available. And I should say that if you know of any veterans or people that need veteran services, the Veterans Service Office located up in Placerville at 130 Placerville Drive can provide you this Veterans Resource Book, which comes from CalVet. They produce, this is an older edition, but they produce these every year. And it includes everything you'd ever want to know about housing, benefits, medical care, and so on. And those are available for free to anyone who would like to have that. Now let's get on to Memorial Day and what's coming up. We unfortunately had to shut down in-person Memorial Day and Veterans Day services this last year. At the time we were going to make the decision for this coming Memorial Day, we did not yet have the level of vaccinations that we have now. And also we were still in a pretty well closed down position. So we were not able to plan for an in-person Memorial Day ceremony. However, this Memorial Day, as our previous Memorial Day and Veterans Day services, will be streamed and broadcast. Streamed online over the Facebook pages that are El Dorado County Veterans Facebook pages, and on Channel 2, which is the cable station, the community access television station. And that'll appear at 11 o'clock on Memorial Day. But we're actually going to tape that ahead of time. And this year's ceremony is going to include a very touching memorial to Captain Paul Jacobs, the commanding officer of the USS Kirk, who in the closing days of the Vietnam War rescued literally over 30,000 Vietnamese sailors, their families, and many refugees from certain death or incarceration or torture. We knew this because of what was happening at that time. Captain Jacobs died in December. He was living up in Bear Valley, which is, I would say, northeast of Georgetown. And so we had in our midst a great American hero who no one really knew until he died that he was living here. And so we're doing a major ceremony. It'll be included in this video presentation that we'll see on Memorial Day. It'll include footage of his rescue, what he did. It goes down in the annals of naval history as one of the largest U.S. humanitarian efforts ever conducted. And it will always be a credit to Captain Jacobs and his crew as for what they did. We're placing a memorial plaque at the Veterans Monument in Placerville. When I talk about these ceremonies, the ceremonies I'm talking about are the ones that occur at the El Dorado County Veterans Monument, which is right next to Government Center in Placerville. If you've never been there, I hope you get a chance to stop there and go there. If you take Ray Lawyer Drive and get off that exit, you'll go right to it. It's right at the east end of the Government Center. And it's a beautiful location. We have over 2,000 bricks memorializing residents of El Dorado County, their relatives, and friends. Anyone can have a veteran memorialized there as long as we know it's a honest veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, honorably discharged. We have veterans literally from the French and Indian Wars to the most recent years of service. We do not yet have a Space Force veteran, but someday we will. And I'm afraid it may come sooner than later, the way things are going in our world. But that's a basic background I have on things. And I thought maybe Todd, if you have something to add, please do.
Hey,
Todd's
thank you, John. I appreciate.
Oh, there you go.
Skipper, can you hear me? Yeah. Captain. Hey, no, well done. Thank you, sir. And I'll reiterate what John said and I don't want to go on more than 30 seconds, but again, I think John will agree with me as a Navy veteran, as a retired deputy. if someone asked me, would you do it all over again? Would you join the Navy? I did 2 deployments, one to Korea, one to the Middle East as a young man, and then my time in law enforcement. And I said, absolutely, because it's just a calling. And I now being retired, and I can still give back to the community. And as long as that we as a community and as the Veterans Affairs Commission and everybody in the team that we work with throughout the community that have different specialties, that everybody is on this Zoom today, and we all know people that help out. It's just an honor to be able to feel like I can still serve in a different way and get just as much satisfaction and happiness from that service. And veterans in this county, John didn't hit on this, but I'll comment on this, is that 10%, 10% of the I'll just say voting population of the county are veterans. And we have more veterans in this county per capita than any county in the state of California. And that says a strong message, is that people come to this county or choose to live in this county because it's such a inclusive county where everybody can have a wonderful future or homestead or create their destiny. And by giving back, by all giving back and helping each other out and moving forward, especially during COVID and now into 21, it's just a great opportunity. And I hope that I can serve as long as my mind and body allows me to. And I thank you all again for your time. Have a wonderful evening.
I'll add one last thing here, which is that on May 19th, a group of us will be volunteering at around 11 a.m. To replant flowers up at the Veterans Monument. If there's any gardener in the group who wants to join us, you're welcome. We always put red, white, and blue flowers out there, and we'll have a little fun. And I'm saying that anyone that comes up that day, I'm treating to lunch. So we'll take you down to Carl's Jr. or something nearby, and or maybe over to In-N-Out and get you some lunch. So thank you all, and I would welcome any questions you have.
Okay, and I would just mention we have a master gardener in our midst here, Tim White. So maybe he can spread the word with the appropriate forces to give you some support there, because it's certainly a worthwhile cause. So questions from the leadership team, anything? Comments? All right, not seeing any. Okay, Sita, go ahead.
This is kind of a question from the last time that they spoke at a meeting. There was somebody who was volunteering. They were making meals for veterans. And do you guys remember the name of that person? And if they're
you're talking about a remarkable story. We gave Leo Cooper, who is a Vietnam veteran. Leo got his degree after serving in Vietnam. He went back to, I believe it was University of Nebraska, and got a degree in food service and became an institutional feeder. So in other words, he worked for hospitals and so forth, the big organizations, universities, running their food service programs. He volunteers his program. In fact, we are bringing many of those meals now up to Lake Tahoe for those students up there. We get a lot of vets that come off service and they want to go into the mountains, kind of recover from what they've been through. And they want careers in the mountains. And Lake Tahoe's community college is getting that. But they can hardly live up there because the cost of housing is so high that they get about $2,000 a month off of the GI Bill, but that's only applies when they're in college. And so they basically eat very bad food and not much of it. And so Leo's been sending up frozen meals, and the response has been phenomenal from those young vets. And he does this for people, veterans' families too, all over the county. There are something like 100 meals a month that are produced by Leo himself. And these are all very nutritious meals. Leo knows the difficulty in nutrition that particularly people of color have. He is a Black man, and he said that he learned through his wife and family that he needed to make meals that were truly nutritional, and he puts all that emphasis and love into that food for people. He's a remarkable guy, and we all love him for what he does for people.
Do you know if he needs any volunteers, or is he doing okay?
I'm sure he does. And the way to reach him is through the veteran. I can send a note to him, and so Sita, if you're interested or anyone else is interested in helping out, they cook up at the Veterans Memorial Building. They have a full kitchen up there, and they cook those meals up there. and you'd actually learn something because he's a very fine chef. And so it'd be fun to go up and learn from Leo while you're making something. But he knows how to make mass meals, very nutritious. They're all frozen. So that what happens is when a vet needs food, and we know that a vet needs food, they come in, we ask, what have you been eating this week? We just go down and grab a packet and say, here, just boil these, and they're cooked. And put it in a microwave and it's cooked. So that's how it works.
I'll email you. I've got your address.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Email me. My email's up there.
I do want to turn to Cindy on their leadership team because there was a recent event held for Bill Turner in recognition of his 101st birthday, right? And you were able to
yes.
attend that. So would you just mention that at the Sellers? Yeah.
Well, and Todd was there too.
Right. But I think it's important to recognize that we do recognize not only our regular vets, but those that have had extreme service and longevity in the service that they provided to this country. So Bill Turner is one of those. 101st birthday. So yeah, Cindy, give me your impressions of how that went.
Well, he was amazing. He's still able to walk around. He was just so happy to be out in this beautiful day at the winery. And and Todd, he had put together a bunch of different things for him. And other offices were there too, presenting him. Our office presented him with their certificate of thanks. And it was just a really neat night, our day with all his family were out there and a lot of friends and relatives. So it's just a wonderful way to really thank a gentleman because he missed his 100th birthday. He wasn't able to celebrate because of COVID.
COVID stuff. So it's Crystal Basin.
He's a World War II vet, and we're lucky in this county. We have so many veterans. We have many 100-year-plus World War II vets in our county.
That's incredible. That means this is a good place to live if you're looking for life expectancy, right?
Yeah, it's a good place to live for that.
Hey, John,
Yes, Todd.
Todd here. I just want to add to what Cindy said. I will tell you, I was there very early on Friday. I was there very early. I just wanted to be there early. And when he came up, I will tell you is that when I shook his hand and exchanged some words with him, I will tell you is that I realized that I'm here today with my wife and my children and my time in service because of men and women who served side by side equally during World War II. It was so humbling to just be in his presence. And he's such a gracious, soft-spoken man, but very energetic, like Cindy said. He loved being around people. And I'm just going to tell you this. How many of us can say, I can say it now, I sat near a man who had, and I quote, 3 glasses of wine, a hot dog, and a piece of cake. And he took photos and talked, and people sat by him, and he was jabbing it up with everybody. And it was the most amazing, it's something that I'll never forget. And it was an honor, a true honor. And I told his daughter that she said, thank you for what you guys did. And I said, no, thank you for letting us be a part of your father's life, because living history is, I don't know. Anyways, it was a blessing. And I'm so glad as a county that we could host this gentleman and make it a special day for him. And I truly believe I could see it in his eyes, in his family, everybody that showed up, and he has 10 great grandchildren. And it just was an amazing day. So it was a pleasure to be a part of it.
And thanks to Mike Owen for hosting it up at Cellar, right? Yeah.
I'd like to add, John, that on Memorial Day, we place memorial bricks out there, and we have another World War II vet and her husband, she is an El Dorado County resident, El Dorado Hills, in fact, who's being recognized. She was a Navy nurse, pharmacist, second mate, I should say, and served in World War II, and her husband was in the Marine Corps. And so we have a program we run in the El Dorado County Veterans Alliance, which maintains the Veterans Monument, called No Vet Forgotten. And we're making sure that she and her husband and other vets who otherwise wouldn't be able to have their family pay for a brick are not forgotten, and that there are bricks placed for them up there. So she'll be honored on Memorial Day as well.
Outstanding. Thank you for that, John. So let's open it up for any public attendee comments or any questions for our Veterans Affairs Commissioner representatives. See any?
Nope, nope.
Well, again, thank you, gentlemen, for your service and for all the things you continue to do for our county. Really appreciate all the help with things because like John pointed out, our county, I think, is recognized as being a leader with respect to helping veterans and veteran services. And we expect to continue to carry on that tradition because it is important to recognize the greatest generation and those that fought in battles or skirmishes and wars thereafter, right? But that's the reflection I'll leave you with. So again, thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate the update. And we'll look forward to the Memorial Day services and all of that. All right, so I'm going to move on into Supervisor Communications. That's item 5, and I'm going to jump to the bottom since Brooke did bring up Saratoga Way. So let me just give you a brief summary of what's going on there. If you haven't had a chance to read that, but we had Daryl Brown from our Department of Transportation go out and conduct a survey of Saratoga and Finders Way. The data was taken on April 13th. And we specifically asked DOT to wait until all of our local schools had opened back up so that we got parent traffic taking kids to the high school, whatever it is. So we actually delayed when they were going to survey by a week just to make sure we caught that segment of the traffic. But here's the results in summary. The average daily traffic on Saratoga is 12,740 vehicles per day. And I'll tell you, there were people at DOT that estimated it would be more like 8,000. So they underestimated how popular that route is. My personal guess was like 10,000 and even exceeded that, 12,740. And I don't think we've seen all of the impacts of people recognizing that that's a much more expedient route than getting out on Highway 50 and coming from El Dorado Hills to Folsom or vice versa, right? So I think we're going to see even more traffic as time goes on. So that's the number, 12,740. The ADT of Finders Way was actually recorded back in June of 2020, but since that's a residential subdivision, we don't expect that traffic to change, but that was 1,547 vehicles per day. So clearly we're seeing on Saratoga about 8 times, 9 times roughly the traffic on Saratoga, as you might expect, as opposed to Finders. Here's a comment that I was surprised by, but it says, per the 2010 Highway Safety Manual, the predicted average crash frequency at this intersection, being Saratoga Way and Finders Way, is 1.1 collisions per year expected. So they say ahead of time that we haven't had any reported collisions at that intersection, but by the safety manual calculations, we can expect 1.1 collisions per year on average at that particular intersection, given the traffic flow and the conditions that are prevailing. So I was surprised it was that high, but I guess maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know. That was kind of the first time I've seen that kind of an analysis presented. The other 2 major findings is the intersection of Saratoga Way and Finders does not meet the all-way stop warrants at this time. And that's a side street volume. Finders Way is very low. And the intersection of Saratoga Way and Finders does not meet the signal warrants at this time. And both of those are measured criteria that DOT, in conjunction with our Highway Patrol, used to determine when 4-way stops, all-way stops, and or traffic light installation and stuff is warranted. So right now they're saying we don't come close to, we're not at the levels of meeting those warrants. So there's nothing there that they can respond to right now. I'm sure the discussion will continue, but that's their basic findings. Now the commitment I have from Rafael Martinez, our Director of Transportation, and his staff is we want to hold a public meeting of some kind with the residents off of Finders Way in particular, but invite that whole community group to really have DOT describe the findings that they had. They had a series of visual observations that they made in the memo as well, that in my category are near misses, but sometimes they say they're not near misses, but clearly there is a lot of concern with that intersection. And the primary issue is line of sight and speed. As you might imagine, people drive very fast on that roadway, and the line of sight is not as great as I would like to see, but it meets standards. So, but it meets standards consistent with lower speeds. So, again, this is an area I think that without enforcement, I think we can expect to see accidents, and that's the way this is forecast. So with that kind of as the general, again, Raphael is committed to have a public meeting. I'm not sure how to set that up, whether APAC wants to be involved with that, or we go to the residents group. We haven't discussed that yet, but we certainly will, and determine what the appropriate format is to hold that meeting. It'll probably be a Zoom session, but real focus is that community on Finder's Way. It isn't really a broad community meeting because we're trying to explain what the numbers are telling us and what we might expect in the future. And what it really comes down to is, well, what level of ADT do we have to have on Saratoga before some kind of additional signal would be warranted there? The one thing I had hoped they would consider is a left turn lane. When you come from Folsom to El Dorado Hills, as you're going eastbound, a left turn lane onto Finders, because that's really where the limited line of sight is. People come over that hill and they're doing a lot more than 45 a lot of times. So that's the traffic avoidance thing. And there's, like I said, there's observations here about people honking their horns and all kinds of other stuff, but that's the rudeness that happens with traffic for the day, I suppose, is the way to summarize that. So, but we want to have the discussion. We'll just have to figure out how to do it. But Raphael's committed to it, and then we'll go from there. So with that, Brooke, I want to give you the first opportunity to go ahead and comment and provide the additional concerns that you had that weren't covered in the memo.
Great, thank you so much. So turning to, what is it called? There is I believe there's a national recognized warrants and guidelines that we have to follow when we're looking at whether or not we can install a four-way stop. Now, I appreciate that the report's focused on the volume of traffic, but that's not the only focus. One of the other focuses that they can pick up on, which I think is a pertinent note, is the collision patterns susceptible of correction by stop control. And just speaking to that exact condition that you were talking about, when you travel east towards El Dorado Hills and you make that left-hand turn onto Finders, what's happening is a systemic traffic infraction where the travelers behind the turning car, there's not enough room for them to go around the car that stopped to go left. So they go every single time into the bike path. That is a traffic infraction that cannot go without us curbing it, because that's going to be a wrongful death, because that bike lane doesn't have a shoulder. So if that car travels into that bike lane and hits a pedestrian because there's no sidewalk, or hits a biker, we're going to have a mortality. That's my number one concern, and it's not identified. They even had observations, but for whatever reason, they weren't marking that in their observations as a traffic infraction, and I'd like to see them reevaluate that.
Yeah.
The number one reason for that is because the bus stop is it's about 200 yards away on Finders. So you have children exiting and walking in that bike lane on a daily basis. Those children don't have a crosswalk on either side. If they're riding their bikes, they're going right out into that traffic. It is probably one of the most dangerous intersections I've ever seen as far as the children are concerned. So to remedy it, we could put in sidewalks. I want them to take another look at the requirements under not only Caltrans, but the national guidelines for the lane dimensions. I don't think we're at specifically 12 feet. And more importantly, when you have speeds that exceed 45 miles per hour, the bike lane needs to be wider than 6 feet. We don't meet that, and that's going to also contribute to a pretty serious accident.
All good things for discussion, because to my chagrin, the board went along and approved not having Saratoga be 4 lanes all the way down, improve 4 lanes all the way down to where it hits El Dorado Boulevard. They decided to stop at Wilson. And I think that was a huge mistake. At the time, the argument was, well, it'll cost us a lot of money to maintain a road that's not going to be used that much, because the traffic is going to split between Wilson and that segment of Saratoga that goes from Wilson, basically, or Finders Way or whatever, down to El Dorado Boulevard. I think that's been proven to be false. So
Yeah.
I appreciate your comments, and I think we need to go back and ask DOT to revisit that and look at it.
Yeah, there's one other comment too, John. Thing that they didn't factor, they factored in the speeds, but you need 305 feet to come to a stop if you're traveling over 40 miles per hour. There is
Mhm.
not enough distance between the sight line when somebody would actually see somebody stopped turning into finders and coming over that ridge traveling 40 miles an hour. So I was disappointed because it looked like the person conducting the study did not take into consideration some other very key factors that could have been used to justify a stop sign.
All very good for the conversation we need to have, because it's that kind of input that I think they need to hear. And there is, I'll just say it, there is a transformation that's been going on in DOT since Raphael came in, to try to really look at what do we need to do to improve some of these situations that have been occurring in the county, to try to make improvements. For instance, I'll use the Green Valley Road and Lock Way left turn lane. That's been a very serious concern for years. DOT did not recognize the need for a left turn lane there. There's been accidents there. There's been near misses. Finally, it looks like we have a solution in hand coming down the road with the improvement of the subdivision that was approved out there, the Vineyards, because there was actually a warrant required for them to put in that left-hand turn lane that was, basically exercised through our planning commission stuff. But unfortunately, that's what we're having to do, is make sure we check every possible way to get these safety improvements made within the county, because it really wasn't well thought out, in my opinion, in the past. And El Dorado Hills is not a rural community. And I just fear that we're using the same techniques sometimes, where we really need to look at it more as a more dense metropolitan type community when we design our roadways. And that takes more money. So the money's got to come from some source, but I'll leave it at that. Probably shouldn't have said that much, but we do have room for improvement. Let's put it that way. So I think the dialogue is good.
Well, I would be more than willing to sit down with Raphael, and I can put all these notes together and hopefully give him enough to maybe revisit some of those recommendations.
Yeah, please do. Put the notes together, send them to him, and please CC me, my office, so I know what they are. If it's appropriate, we'll set up a Zoom meeting with just you, and I'll participate in it. If you'd rather talk to Raphael directly, that's fine too. But I think we're trying to change some of the mindset of the way county has addressed things in the past, but all those things cost more money. And we know, there just isn't a lot of money in El Dorado County, at least, to make those kinds of needed improvements, safety improvements. You get that in the CIP plan. We can spend all night talking about the CIP and what got deferred and why it got deferred, but we're not going to go there. But thank you, Brooke. I appreciate your comment.
Can I ask just one thing, John?
Yeah,
just
sure.
as an interim action, is there anything precluding us from at least putting a crosswalk in?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So that's something that has to be looked at. I'm not sure our county DOT staff really understands what the pedestrian needs are there relative to schools and kids. I mean, they go out and they observe some people on the sidewalk that's going on, the improved section that was put in as part of the subdivision there, but I'm not sure that they really look at all of the needs for sidewalks relative to kids walking from point A to point B, and the school systems and all those things. I'm not sure that's part of their general consideration, but
Yeah, I'll just let you know, in that intersection, there are absolutely no sidewalks and no crosswalks. So even the new improved development area, it stops short about a block and a half from that Finders intersection.
Yeah, I'm guessing that part of the answer there is without a stop sign or a signal. A crosswalk is just introducing another hazard for some driver that doesn't see the kid in the crosswalk, right? I don't know. We'll let DOT respond to that, but that would be my first blush guess at why there's no crosswalk there. But again, we'll have that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with that, is there anybody on the leadership team?
Denise has her hand up.
Is there anybody on the leadership team that would like to raise a question relative to our discussion here before we open it up to the public? Question or comment?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. The part of this the development of the Saratoga Estates is CSD Park, I believe, between Highway 50 and Saratoga Way, which is a few hundred feet away. So you're talking about a park. I'm trying to remember. I think there is a parking lot there. I can't remember from the master plan, but but still residents that are nearby will elect to walk if it's walkable. So it'd be another consideration in terms of the sidewalks and the crosswalks and things like that. And I think I looked at it a while ago with a satellite measuring tool, which is not accurate. I think those lanes are about, from bike lane to center line, they're about 10 feet or 11, maybe 11. But those aren't highly accurate. But if you had mentioned having a discussion, and it's more focused on the residents in that area, but APAC, we can go ahead and facilitate a one-off meeting and just have those residents meet, and we'll just use the normal APAC mechanisms and invite those residents to if that's a community discussion we want to have.
I certainly think that's appropriate venue if you want to take that on, to lead it from the APAC perspective. And I'm not trying to limit it just to the residents in Finders Way area, but they're the ones who are affected every day, right? That's who we've heard all the complaints about. We've heard complaints about people speeding down Wilson and not stopping appropriately there. That's a totally different issue, right? It's related, but it's not Finders Way. So, and I think we do want to hear all those things, but there was a specific request for the traffic study, and that's why we want to make sure that community gets our response and has the opportunity to challenge it, so to speak.
Yeah, it's also, I suspect it'd be informative to the rest of the community too, to see how the analysis was done and how the findings were generated, and how DOT makes those determinations. We don't think that they're trying not to ignore a situation, but how what they have to comply with in terms of the highway manual and everything else.
And there's a lot of additional backup. I just read the summary from the cover letter, but there's the additional analysis is included in the 3 different documents that we received. So we'll go through that in more detail when we get into that particular meeting, discussion, because it'll probably be a significant focus on it. So thank you for volunteering to help with that. Any other? Tim?
Yeah, John, unfortunately, this sort of is an example of the Saratoga situation. What we're constantly seeing from DOT is that they are consistently and constantly underestimating the daily trips on anything that they work on. And I know that there's science involved with it, but as you mentioned, Saratoga Way, when we were looking at that at APAC around the time you were elected for your first term, they were saying that the 2 lanes were unwarranted, and it would be 15 years before the traffic would mandate that there be 2 lanes in each direction between Wilson and El Dorado Hills Boulevard. The traffic numbers are just blown away. Their analysis seems to be faulty. And, if they were thinking it would be 8,000 daily trips, and it's 50% more, it's 12,000 by their measurements. Wait until everyone's traveling again completely. They're going to be up to 20,000 trips probably by next year as more things open up. So, we really have to question, what is DOT looking at? How did they get to their numbers? And why are they consistently underestimating the traffic trips on all the projects that they're representing?
Right. So I'll just make a comment. They use the traffic demand model, which was something the county paid to have Fair and Pierce put together. The analysis they provided of the Finders Way Saratoga includes the traffic demand model results. I have a lot of questions relative to that traffic demand model in terms of the validity of the numbers, and can we really believe what's coming out of it? But that's not unlike the similar thing that happened on Green Valley Road, and some of the numbers that came out of there just didn't make a whole lot of sense to a lot of us. And I just brought it to Raphael's attention that the current ADTs on Green Valley Road are just slightly below what they are on El Dorado Boulevard. And so I think that makes Green Valley Road and our part of it the 3rd most highly trafficked area in El Dorado County. In terms of county maintained roads, we obviously exclude the highways, but and I guess he wasn't tracking it that closely, but I think he is now, because we've asked for widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes from Francisco down to Silver Valley Parkway. That's been in the mix for a long time. It's in the CIP. It continues to get kicked out. These numbers substantiate the need for prioritizing that and making it happen, but they're juggling a lot of things, right? Trying to maintain roads across this broad county is a difficult task. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit when we get into infrastructure relative to the actual improvements we can see coming up in El Dorado Hills here in the near term compared to some of the other county areas. So any other thing else from the leadership team? Questions or comments, Sita?
Very brief. I just wanted to confirm what John Davey was saying there. There is a park, public park plan at the corner of Wilson and Saratoga. Yeah. It's the street. If you're heading eastbound on Saratoga, when it's 2 lanes, Wilson would be on your heading north, and there's your left-hand side, and that's the corner where the park will be. Then Saratoga turns into just a, I guess, narrower portion, and Finders is right in front of you. So,
Yeah, and the CSD accepted that property for development as a park, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their plans are today. They talked about making a dog walking park or something, and I don't think that's the final thing. I'm not sure what they're really planning, but they're master planning right now, so we will get a better picture when they finish their master plan process. But thank you for that, Sita. With that, let's open it up to the public. Anyone else who would like to comment on our Saratoga and Finders Way analysis?
Denise.
Hi, my name is Denise Liu. I'm a resident. I live on Finders Way, and I have actually spoken to Cindy before, and she's been really receptive and helpful and helping to direct me to different contacts at DOT. And I've talked to like at least 5 different people at DOT, including the person right below Director Martinez. And I was able to just briefly look today, just about half an hour before this session started, at the interoffice memorandum to look at the findings of the study. And what I see in the study, it almost is like they came to the conclusion and wrote that before they did the study. And the reason why I say that is because it's quite piecemeal and disjointed. You know, they say things like they saw incidences observed in 4 directions, you know, both westbound and eastbound Saratoga Way, southbound and Finders Way. So basically the whole intersection is a mess. There's been honking, and as Supervisor Heidel would characterize it, almost near misses in every direction, yet it doesn't somehow escalate to issue of concern with DOT. And then when they said the average daily traffic is nearly 13,000 vehicles, before it was just like 3,000 vehicles. So it's gone up almost like 3-fold in just less than about 10 months. They compare that and they say, well, the ADT of Finders Way is only 1,547, but then they use the number from June 2020, which is the height of the COVID shutdown. So first, I believe it's a misconception to say that the risks and incidences on Finders Way are more minimized the more people that use Saratoga Way. It doesn't matter if 1,547 or 5,000 use Finders Way. If 25,000 use Saratoga Way, it's still a risk for us people living on Saratoga Way and who have to travel that way. And also they talk about the study, the way pedestrians and bicycles. Well, Brooke also mentioned this, but there's no designated way to cross. So how are they counting? Those people are all actually jaywalkers. They're illegally using those streets. So just to say, well, look, we counted these people illegally using and illegally crossing, and that shows there's not many people using it. Of course, there's no safe way to cross. People are not going to allow their children. I don't walk down that area because it's very dangerous to cross there. And I talked about this on Nextdoor, and many dozens of people wrote me saying they've now changed the route to avoid turning left onto Finders Way. Instead, they go around Arrowhead or Mammoth, and they take they go behind the senior center just to avoid that left-hand turn because they've had a lot of near misses to the point they're too scared, and they tell their younger drivers, don't turn there. It's really, really dangerous. Well, those numbers aren't being counted as well. So I find this study to be not sufficient to accurately capture the situation that's going on here. Now, I read Supervisor Heidel too, that you also, and you mentioned earlier, that you wanted to have 4 lanes there, but they wouldn't approve of that. I think as an El Dorado County resident who pays El Dorado County taxes, all of this traffic is going to Sacramento County, where they're getting all these taxes and revenues. Yet here in El Dorado County, we're the one taking the risk. We're the one taking our lives, at risk just to turn into our homes. How is that okay? And DOT can keep saying, yeah, we're going to do another study. Well, now it's been over a year since that's open. They've completely underestimated how many people are going to use this road, and it's just going to get worse and worse. Saratoga Estates is opening up. There's going to be that park. Pedestrians going to be walking this way. So is it that Supervisor Heidel, under your watch, their whole family has to get killed in that walking there, or somebody's got to get rear-ended. I mean, I initially contacted Cindy because I was making a left onto Finder's Way. There was nobody around. Some guy came flying over the hill. I noticed him coming down. I had my turn signal on almost all the way from Wilson. And I looked to the right. He's not going around me on the right. He's going around me on the left. I veer back into the right and slam on my brake. He goes around me and flashes me the bird. And this is a common occurrence. The fact that your people are even counting that things are happening in every direction shows how very dangerous this intersection is on a daily basis. And I know that you're gonna say, okay, wait to do one more study. Well, how many studies is it gonna take? Does somebody really have to get killed?
I'm not going to answer that, hopefully not, but statistics count is all I can tell you relative to warrants to put in traffic signs and signalization and stuff. And so I'm going to defer the comment beyond that to Officer Brown if he chooses to speak to it, because obviously he's our primary law enforcement for those kinds of traffic situations along Saratoga Way. So thank you, Denise. Appreciate your comment. Anybody else? Okay, I think we've concluded that. So let's move on. I wanted to start at the top here then and kind of run through these pretty quick. The Board of Supervisors Good Governance Special Meeting, which we planned on, has been moved to late June or early July. The feeling of several board members is they were not prepared. There's just too many irons in the fire, too many things going on to hold the meeting as scheduled. So we've deferred that. And we will be putting out a notification of when that date solidifies, but you can anticipate late June, early July. The SACOG Green Means Go got a lot of traffic relative to social media and press and stuff. Tomorrow on our Board of Supervisors meeting, staff was recommended that we basically continue that off calendar. And so we're going to have that discussion as part of our consent calendar review. Similar to if the CAO had recommended something be continued off calendar, then we don't necessarily have to have staff come and present it. We just know it's going to be deferred. So we will be addressing that. But the bottom line is our DOT and talking with SACOG and a lot of other areas determined that it's not necessary to push forward with this at this point in time, given everything else that's happening. And part of that's legislative action. So it will be tabled for further discussion while we collect a whole lot more information. So no decision on that, but we are kicking the can relative to any near-term requests for green zones to be established. Let me put it that way. So hopefully, I guess, and let me just finish all of these and then we'll go back. Well, I guess I need to take them one at a time. So does anybody have any questions on this one before we go on to probably the one that most people want to hear about, which is Central El Dorado Hills? So any leadership team questions or comments on the Green Means Go at this point? Seeing none, any public comment? Okay, so seeing none, we'll go on then to Central El Dorado Hills. And this is obviously a long-standing project. Planning just recently released the second partial recirculated draft EIR. The thing that a lot of us did not recognize or did not expect was for this to have two new alternatives. And that's based upon previous comment. We always knew that there would have to be a revisitation of vehicle miles traveled because county wasn't prepared, and particularly the Planning Commission didn't have enough information to really make a determination on the suitability of the VMT analysis at the time that the district church meeting was held well over a year and a quarter ago, a long time ago. So the things that have changed, and I'm just going to read this from you to you quickly from the actual document, so you get the facts and not somebody else's interpretation. This following revisions were made to the RDIR vehicle miles traveled. Central Hills DR analyzed traffic impacts based on level of service with the implementation of SB 7043, which is vehicle miles traveled. The metric for traffic impacts has been changed to VMT. So we know we're going to have a VMT discussion, and that will start with the Planning Commission. But ultimately, they're going to start with just a workshop type of format and take inputs from people. There will be a staff presentation on May 27th. And the planning commission will probably be asking some questions. The public can ask questions, but there will be no decisions made at that meeting relative to the approval of EMT or recommendation or any action relative to the two alternatives. So that's what we expect on May 27th. But I did want to cover the alternatives. First part of this says alternatives 4 and 5. They analyzed the first DER analyzed 3 alternatives, including a no project alternative. And now both of those alternatives have been added by 2 more. And so the 2 alternatives include an alternative land use associated with specifically a zoning consistent type of alternative, a zoning consistent alternative, which means they are compliant with the current land use and zoning, particularly on the open space property that we all know is the executive golf course. What they're saying is they can come forward with an alternative that maintains the ability for them to develop as they propose, but consistent with the zoning for open space use. It does require conditional use permits, and I'll get into a little bit more detail of that. So that's the first new alternative, the zoning consistent alternative. The second alternative is a senior living alternative. And again, both of these are significantly different than the 2 other alternatives we looked at before. And the third alternative being the no project alternative, which is pretty it's standard. In fact, it's required for any CEQA document. You have to have a no project alternative. So let me read you briefly alternative 4, the zoning consistent, so you get a feel for what the scope is on this without going into all the gory detail. For the second recirculated DEIR, the zoning consistent alternative assumes that the land uses in the project area will be developed pursuant to current zoning. Unlike the proposed project, the county general plan amendment and El Dorado Hills specific plan amendment would not be required. That means no general plan amendment, no zoning change, no modification of the El Dorado specific plan. This is basically a by rights proposal from the entitlements that Parker has gained for the various projects they have. The difference is when they put it in here, they want to make it a specific plan as opposed to piecemeal development. And there's advantages from their perspective. There's advantages from the county's perspective of approving it as a specific plan. We get much more discussion on a development agreement. There's activity that goes on in terms of these are the needs of the county. So I always view these things as a much better regional planning document if you have a specific plan as opposed to individual projects. But the message they're sending us is that if they go this route, they basically have project approvals with the exception of conditional use permit requirements for the zoning consistent application. So that's kind of the big news. So let me read what's in here. The zoning consistent alternative would consist of developing 510 detached single-family residential units at a density of less than 1 to 5 dwelling units per acre on the west side planning area north of Serrano Parkway. And they've got maps that go with this, but that's what it is. 510 detached single-family residential, 144 attached multifamily residential units at a density of 14 to 24 dwelling units per acre on Pedregal planning area. This is the key, I think, for a lot of us who are concerned with open space. Open space and parkland would be dedicated to 173 acres. If you go back and look at the original minimum residential proposal, we would end up with 130 acres of open space. That's the minimum open space that would result as these various projects. This one obtains an additional 43 acres of open space and parkland as they have proposed. So if you're talking about how do we maintain open space or increase open space, this is the alternative that would appear to do that. This alternative would not include the civic limited commercial land use, but would include 5 acres zone for a church as allowed by the El Dorado specific plan. So the property that was originally intended as this civic limited commercial land use is right across the street from our Station 84 fire station, Wilson Boulevard, but it's on the north side of Wilson where it dead ends. The fire station is on the south side. The property on the north side, there was 11 acres that they talked about as this civic or limited commercial land use. That was at one point in time a proposed site for the basically the community for the ages type of facility, a senior facility, but it would be used by everybody, not just the seniors. That was one of the target sites was identified, but this approach would say that's no longer available. You have a 5-acre church site there. Okay, but again, that can be modified in the discussions, but that's what they're talking about. The former El Dorado Hills Executive Golf Course probably would remain under its current zoning of recreational facilities, high use, and would be developed as active recreational facilities that could include uses permitted by that zoning, such as a tennis and aquatics facility, a day use and night use sporting fields, amusement complex, indoor or outdoor entertainment facilities, hotels, and general merchandise sales. So that's the breadth of activities allowed within our current zoning for open space that they could go ahead and apply for without having to have a change in anything. So those are the potential uses they can make out of it. All of those, or at least the majority of those, require a conditional use permit, which, you know, that's a different process you go through. And then they talk about circulation improvements and proposed project. Vehicle connectivity would also be constructed. Off-site infrastructure improvements outside of the project area required to support it. But the main thing I think we need to recognize, this alternative would not include the 2 pedestrian crossings at Rayleighs and La Borgata, nor the location for the pedestrian crossing over US Highway 50, nor the potential connection to Silver Valley Parkway. So again, they pulled back some of the things they proposed in the other 2 alternatives, the first 2 alternatives, other than the no project alternative. So this is substantially different than what we've seen before. I know APAC is going to do a detailed analysis on it. I'm still reading through the sequel parts, the elements of it to try to get a better understanding of what happens with traffic circulation. And so there's a lot of details to come, but there are 2 key maps that really identify where the development would occur. And the first map really defines where the residential properties would be put in place, where the open space would be, where the high density recreational facilities would be located. So I would encourage you to look at that figure 4.4 if you really want to get just a bird's eye view to start with of what they're proposing with this alternative. It is substantially different than anything we've seen. So I'm going to leave that one there, sort of questions. And then the last alternative they call the senior living alternative. Would include residential development similar to the proposed project in the Pedregal planning area, et cetera. The primary difference is it would consist of developing 37 detached single-family residential units, 1 to 5 dwelling units on Pedregal, identical to the initial proposed project, 226 single-family residential units at a density of 8 to 14 on Serrano West Side planning, and 300 detached multifamily residential units at 14 to 24. This is the key change, in my opinion. The former executive golf course south of Serrano Parkway would be developed as a senior living facility with 1,000 independent living dwelling units and 200 assisted living dwelling units. So 1,200 senior living dwelling units to be located on the old golf course. Open space and parkland would be dedicated. This alternative would include the 11 acres of the Civic Limited. So the church site would go, the 11 acres would be back in, and various other aspects of it. So again, I'm trying to really understand and absorb all of this. I'll just encourage everybody who wants to get more involved to participate in that May 27th Planning Commission workshop, because I'm sure the proponents will have drawings and figures and answer questions. And that's where I think all of us will learn a little bit more about these 2 additional alternatives. So with that as the backdrop, without belaboring, I'm going to ask our leadership team, does anybody have any questions or comments? A lot of reading to do, a lot of digestion, but short of that, John or Tim from APAC, let's start with you. Anything?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. That'll be our APAC update tonight. And Serrano Associates will be at our May meeting. That'll be our sole topic for the evening. And John's described the proposed changes pretty well. The zoning consistent it's not the open space that's identified as part of the general plan, but it's the actual recreational facility high usage zoning that exists right now. So as John said, a lot of these things, restaurants and parking lots, driving ranges, things like that, tennis, aquatics. Those are all things that they can right now go and build if they want to pursue a conditional use permit and they, they're meeting, building code standards. Part of that change though for the zoning, consistent alternative number 4 is that the majority of the single family residents will be moving from the Toronto West Side plan area to the Pedrickle plan area. It'll be much denser for the Pedrickle side, because they talked about 37 housing units before. Now they're talking about more multifamily on that side. And this also does include, I guess we'll call it Asbestos Ridge, Village. It's C and D. Those will be those. They have they have approvals to develop those right now. Those would be back on the table to be developed. The second alternative for alternative 5 for senior living, yes, much denser south of the golf course. And then Pedrickle would be sort of as proposed, less dense. But it's a lot of usage there south of the Serrano Parkway behind Rayleigh's on the golf course. As part of the zoning consistent plan, also the park space for Dorado Hills CSD gets reduced, I think, from 13 or 15 acres down to 7.
Yeah.
Also the country club.
And I think they're actually saying the 7 acres would be a park or development park, not a CSD park.
Yeah, it would be private park. Sorry.
Private park as opposed to community park. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then the country club drive extension down to Park Drive, that goes away. And the pedestrian overpass of US 50 goes away. And then the I believe the overpass at between, not an overpass, but the traffic would, I don't know how I saw, there's no details. We have to get in and get an idea what's going on between Borgata and the Rayleigh Shopping Center, which is fun to entertain and concept it on any level. But so those are things we'll be talking about at APAC. There's still not a lot of detail. I talked to Kirk Bone 2 weeks ago, and he right away said, hey, we're looking at a 45-day comment period. Can we get it on the calendar at APAC? So they will be there. The comment period ends in June, I believe on the 14th, if I'm remembering correctly. And so we're going to have a respectful conversation. We're going to hear what they have to present. And then, our subcommittee needs to get working.
Yeah.
The VMT is it's an empirical, it's a lot of witchcraft. We don't know really how it's implemented. I will say that Ferris and Pierce, who did the VMT implementation for the county as a consultant, is the consultant for this project for the developer, for the applicant. So if anybody knows how VMT works, it's going to be their consultant. So Tim, is there anything else you want? We have a lot of reading to do. I've already read it twice and I'm still, my eyes are glazed over.
Yeah.
So.
And let me just advise you, we're not going to get detail out of a specific plan proposal.
No.
I'm not sure you or Tim or a lot of the APAC members have ever participated in a specific plan proposal. I have the history of that. A lot of our more senior people do. But a specific plan is just not going to give you that kind of detail because they want to maintain flexibility. That's the advantage of a specific plan.
Yeah.
They get an extension of how long the plan stays active, and they also can provide incremental updates and final maps and stuff as they want to develop it. So they can talk about possibilities, but they're not going to tell you this is our number one choice and this is probably going to happen. So I'll just give you a heads up if you've never been through that specific plan process. A little frustrating that you're not going to get the detail, but I think when you understand why they're going that route, times change, right? The market changes, things change. They don't want to commit to something now and then have to come back in 5 years and say, yeah, but the economics is totally different now. What people really want is this, and that's what we want to put in. So I think that's why the specific plan is used with more general descriptions of what could as opposed to what will actually be there.
Well, and that's consistent with what they presented before because it's a specific plan. So,
yep.
And I know that's some of the difficulties that the planning commissioners were having analyzing it. And, the 3 meetings they had to that date is they didn't, they're looking at specific plans, they're looking at large lot tentative maps and not specific tentative maps, which will come later. So,
right. Yep.
Tim, is there anything you want to throw in there?
No, other than the fact that it's only about 200 pages and we've already looked at about 2,000 pages of documents over the last 4 or 5 years on this. So it's going to be a quicker read, but the the alternatives, I mean, the initial take on them, there's pros and cons on each one. And I think it's really people really have to look at the details, try to read them, ask good questions, both at the May 27th Planning Commission meeting and at the APAC meeting. And then people are just going to have to decide which of any alternatives, including the one that a lot of the community voted would like to see, which is nothing being built. And that is an alternative that's been presented. So, make your voices heard, and you can do it through APAC and then individually to the planning commissioners and to the Board of Supervisors when it gets up to there.
Yep. Okay, very good. So any other comments from our leadership team or questions at this point? We're just all starting to digest this really because.
CJ has a question, but I was going to throw in. If you go to the APAC website, we have a blog post right up at the beginning of the website, and then we'll be posting our agenda on Wednesday. But the project document's already been uploaded to the APAC website. The diagrams and maps that John spoke of, in referring to the two different new alternatives, they're on the website as well.
Very good. So Sita, do you have another question on that?
Two short ones. You guys are mentioning the high density active recreation as being like aquatic center, potential driving range, but things have been floated around like something like Top Golf or things like that. Would that be considered commercial or would that be considered active?
I think that fits in the amusement category, right?
And that fits in with the active recreation?
That's clearly defined in our zoning as an allowed conditional use permit for amusement purposes. So, and all of those definitions, specific definitions are available in the zoning ordinance. I've read through them several times and really tried to get my head around why would you write it that way? But that's what we have in our zoning ordinance, which is what we have to live by until we change it. But right now, that's what's there. Some of these conditional use permits, I don't quite understand the logic of how they were put in that way for a recreational high use, but somebody in planning at the time put it together, and so we'll all figure it out together, right? So
and then if El Dorado Hills Boulevard being quite having traffic issues and concerns down, you just mentioned it should have been maybe 2 lanes on each side. Is there a possibility of a condition of development of having other lanes put in on that, or?
Well, it says in here, offsite infrastructure improvements would be required to support the zoning consistent. For instance, if you look at that alternative, what you're going to have to do is go to the traffic and circulation part of this and really try to understand what they're proposing there. I've perused it once and I have more questions than answers related to this, knowing all the other projects that have had concerns there. They don't cover the full range, but again, this isn't intended to cover everything because they're trying to get a specific plan approved and not an individual project. So you can't condition these kinds of situations hardly at all. It ends up being a development agreement is where you really get your teeth into what you can get for the community. It's not going to be conditioning till you get to the actual individual project approvals. Then the planning commission has the ability, the board has the ability to establish additional conditions. But by that time you're heading down a path and you're just trying to make things better. You're not trying to stop them at that point, at least the way I read it. So let's open it up to the public with that. Any public participation comment on this one?
Look like it.
Okay, very good. Then I'm going to cover the last item I have under Supervisors Communications. Some of you may know, but we put out the official announcement that a week from today, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., the El Dorado Community Foundation will be hosting what they're calling a community elevation, and they're really talking about a series of these. This is just the first of a series of discussions on different topics, is the way they envision it. But this particular topic is on mobile home parks and what's happening in El Dorado County relative to mobile home parks. So Bill Roby will be the moderator and lead the overall activity. I think that's a great choice. As I mentioned, it'll be held at, I guess it didn't mention, the theater at Union Mine High School. And it will be a combined hybrid type of meeting where we will have both in-person allowance of attendance, because that, if you've never been up to their theater area, it's fairly large. We'll have people socially distanced. but you are allowed to attend as a public member there in person if you want, but it's also covered by Zoom. And I'll point out that there are no mobile home parks in District 1, but there's one right across the street from District 1 in District 2 that's just across the street from our town center east facility, right? The Sunset Mobile Home Park, used to be called Fuller Sunset, but so I know a number of people that live there. I have specific interests in what's going on there. So that's kind of why I got involved with it, as well as Wendy Thomas, the District 3 supervisor, who has the vast majority of mobile home parks within her district. So the two of us, having read concerns from the public about rents and how they're establishing rents and what's going on with some of the lease agreements, long-term lease options, that's what we wanted to do. So the bottom line is the format is panelists. So we'll have representatives from both the mobile home park operating and owners type committee, as well as members of the public who live in mobile homes or know a lot about some of the issues with mobile home tenants, right? So we're going to have 6 total panelists, a balanced panel. Wendy and I are identified as co-hosts. We're going to kick the thing off with just some brief comments. That's the first part of the agenda. We have to spend 5 minutes after that talking about publicized trends in mobile home park ownership in California. There's been trends not in our county yet, but where mobile home parks have actually been converted from mobile home park use to other residential property use. And I look at that as an investment thing, right? If you buy a piece of property, you're probably going to get potential for higher return on investment if you can have it rezoned and develop it as something other than a mobile home park. So that's what some of those references deal with. And then we got 20 minutes of what we call anecdotal data on rent increases and long-term leases in El Dorado County. We're calling it anecdotal because we've been able to receive a bunch of emails, but nothing is a definitive report that defines these things, because a lot of the mobile home park residents don't want to provide comments or details for fear of some form of retaliation or whatever, right? And you got to recognize a lot of them are seniors, right? And they're in that period, they're just trying to hang on to their mobile home and the living style they have and not be forced out of it. So that's what some of that discussion is about. Then we're going to have CJ Freeland present just 10 minutes of our county general plan regarding mobile homes and affordable housing considerations, since we're updating the RENA numbers, regional housing needs assessment that we got from SACOG, and recognizing that mobile home parks has been part of the county general plan in terms of a planned affordable housing for the last 20 plus years. So it is a form of affordable housing that's been recognized, and I think is still in significant demand. And then we're going to do some brainstorming on alternatives to address some of the concerns that are expressed, talk about next steps, and that's it in the 2-hour presentation. My anticipation is there will be a follow-up of this of some form. It may not be through the community foundation, but some other longer discussion will probably occur. But this will kick it off, and maybe the foundation will decide that they want to have a second series to address specific items that were identified and possible solutions. I'm not sure how it's going to proceed, but ultimately, the foundation talked about having other things like affordable housing being one of the discussions. What are we doing? What can we do as a community relative to meeting our commitments on affordable housing that have been given to us from the state of California, and how we best navigate that so it's the minimum impact to existing communities, but yet it's near facilities that would be appropriate for transit systems and other things for transportation. And what we have to deal with that whole thing is a separate item. But that's just an example of one of about 5 other topics that Bill Roby mentioned as part of this community elevation series. So I want to make you aware of that. I think we put it out on our social media. I know there was a press release, I think, put out identifying all this. So if you have questions, you can contact my office. But I would encourage anybody who has an interest to either attend via Zoom or to attend in person at Union Mine High School, Monday, May 10th, 5:30 to 7:30. So with that, I'm going to ask the leadership team any questions or comments on that one before we open it up to the public. All right, very good. Is there any public inputs on that?
I don't see any.
Excellent. So let's go to our leadership team. Richard, sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Given the demographics of the mobile home community, this being at Union Mine and this being on Zoom, are they going to have the capability to travel there or to participate on Zoom? Maybe I'm making some assumptions about their demographic situation and their technological capabilities and mobility, but are they going to be able to participate?
Yes, so my understanding is we've had 35 people already sign up for in-person participation. These are mobile home park owners that want to be there in person. A lot of them, as you might expect, don't necessarily have Zoom skills or Zoom capabilities, so they want to be there in person to participate in the discussion. And I think if you're directly impacted by this, that's the best way, because you can see the body language, you can see the people. So I would encourage anyone who will be directly impacted by whatever the outcome of this discussion is to try to attend if they can in person. But if not, you have the Zoom option. So I'm going to be there, and Wendy will be there. I think Cindy's planning on attending. And we're just interested in seeing how many people show up. I will mention that they're asking for questions in advance. The foundation has set up a separate web page that advertises all this. It collects the questions because we're trying to do a collection and sorting before we actually start the meeting. So we have questions that we can start out with that we think are the most important for people to understand, with a limited number of questions probably be taken by participants, because we're hoping there's a broad enough spectrum of questions at the input when the meeting starts, so we can cover the bases. We'll open it up briefly for public inputs there, but obviously with 2 hours, and this could be a 4-hour or 6-hour or whatever meeting you want to make it, right? So we're trying to keep it to the point, keep it specific, find out who the really affected, impacted people are, and then maybe focus a separate discussion with just them to get into some of the opportunities here from the brainstorming to resolve things. But the first one is an overall countywide, get involved if you want.
It sounds like you're getting good participation then. Thank you for the answer.
Okay, when I talked to Bill Roby, they were going to take a limited number of questions. So who were you talking with?
Chris.
Okay, Chris doesn't run the show.
Okay.
I know what he's trying to accomplish, and that would be Bill's desire, but I think we have to consider taking some public comment, but that's a minor thing, so.
Yeah, we're gonna have it all fixed. We're having a meeting tomorrow.
Otherwise, everybody reads it. This is hardwired. You provided all the questions. You're providing all the answers. Why did I even bother to attend? So there's that aspect of it, but anyway. Okay, let's move on. Leadership team progress report. So let's start with public safety. Do we have our sheriff's office representative on tonight? Didn't see Alex.
Yeah, I saw, yeah, there he is.
Okay, please, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Alex Morton. I'm a detective with the sheriff's office, and I work property crimes for El Dorado Hills. So just want to go over some stats for the past few weeks in El Dorado Hills. So for the weeks of 4/15 through 4/21 in El Dorado Hills, we had a total number of 6 property crimes cases. In 4/22 to April 28th, we had a total of 11 cases out of El Dorado Hills. Some of those cases, just to kind of give you a summary of those events, we did have a few garages in the Lake Forest area that were burglarized and some items were taken. We had looks like a vandalism or graffiti at the library in El Dorado Hills. And then we had a number of vehicle burglaries, vehicle vandalisms. A few of the windows were shattered and items were taken from vehicles. That's kind of the kind of the summary of the property crimes cases that we're seeing. Just kind of a note from my desk. I have been noticing within the past few weeks a number of bicycle thefts in El Dorado Hills. So and some of these are pretty brazen as far as the time of the day that they're occurring. I've seen a number, quite a bit of video surveillance from homes where it's middle of the day and the garage doors open and maybe the kids left the bicycles in the garage or in the driveway, and a vehicle will, just drive by once, and you see it drive by again, and then someone comes and takes a couple bicycles and throws them in their vehicle and drives away. So it happens super quick. I know a lot of these bicycles are pretty expensive. So just keep that in mind. Even in the middle of the day, it's always good practice to keep things locked up tight and not out, for prying eyes, I guess. So that's all I have from my area. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. So questions from the leadership or comments from the leadership team for Alex? I guess I'll just point out, go ahead, Sita, go ahead.
Sorry, small question.
Yep.
Would a home invasion be, kick door, those kinds of situations, is that considered property crimes that are separate?
No, that is a property crime. So that would come to my desk. That is it's a burglary. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the other thing I'll mention is I noticed that e-bikes are becoming much more popular in our community. I'm seeing them all over the roadways, and you can't buy a decent e-bike for less than $1,000. So it's not only the traditional bicycles, which are, can be very expensive. So e-bikes can go up to $10,000 or more. And so I would just warn everybody that's maybe doesn't have kids with bicycles in the garage. Be careful where you place your e-bike. If it's visible from the street, people ride by. It's a little heavier lift, but I'm sure that they could abscond with it if they chose to make that a target. And that's pretty good money if they sell it through some source, right? So
yeah, easily the felony realm when we're talking about these bikes. So, and I always encourage people to write down the serial numbers of these bicycles, and then also to have pictures of them. I know sometimes they're customized, stickers or engravings or anything like that. That's helpful, especially as I'm perusing through, OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace to try to track down some of this stuff. It's helpful to have as much detail as I can. So it's always helpful.
very good. So let's open it up to the public at this point. I think we have at least one public participant. And then we're going to go back to Richard. So let me catch you just at the end, side of this, Rich.
Okay, Hillary?
Hello?
Yes, Hillary, go ahead. You got an echo.
Okay, sorry. I wanted to talk during the supervisor's communication, but I wasn't getting through. And so I called too, and I wasn't getting through there either. So I'm surprised you actually were able to recognize me. Is it okay if I just make one comment on the whole Saratoga Way? I know I'm going backwards, but I wanted to ask John.
Yeah, please keep it brief, but yes, please.
Okay, sorry, but I wanted to ask, John Davy made a comment that on one of the alternatives, Country Club wouldn't be going all the way down to Park, or it goes away. So you're saying that it wouldn't be back through the Rayleighs in that area, the connection?
Yeah, one of the project alternatives for the two new projects, that Country Club extension down to Park goes away.
Okay, so I just want to comment on the whole Saratoga Way relation to Park going through, Park Drive, coming through the Rayleighs and all of that. That's the big issue for a lot of us who live off of Saratoga Way, is you think there's 12,000, whatever you mentioned, cars now. If that connection goes through there, it's straight across from Saratoga Way. So, our concern to our association here is that's going to add even more to the traffic. So when you're looking at the whole Saratoga Way picture, you've got to look at the projects. These are projects that sometimes require a rezone of the property. So when DOT studies traffic over the years, many years as I've been involved, they're not looking at that certain properties for residential. And so we either we're doing amendments or we're doing a rezone. And And that really impacts Saratoga Way. So just kind of keep that in mind when you are looking at all these other projects. And there are other people besides the one-off finders, that would like to attend that meeting that you're talking about regarding Saratoga Way and the whole finders. So could you also invite, any of the people that live off Mammoth Way and Arrowhead Drive?
We haven't done the invitations yet. What we're trying to find out now is who are the key leaders within the Finders Way area that are willing to help organize that. So an APAC could do that if they choose. But the county probably is not going to take the time to try to figure out exactly who to try to contact, because then we get accused of not covering everybody. So it's better if it comes from the community somehow. But people are welcome to attend. It's just how do you get the word out to everybody? And we can put it on our social media, but not everybody reads social media either. So, but we will try to make sure that's emphasized. I just want to clarify one thing that John Davies said. The developer would not fund the roadway connection.
Oh.
Come up to Silva. That doesn't mean that the county has planned that connection for a long time.
The water and
yeah, Alex, could you mute your phone, please? Thank you. That doesn't mean it isn't part of the county planning. DOT has planned that connection for a long time. It just means the developer is not agreeing at this point in time to pay for and actually implement that connection, which was part of the other alternative. So it doesn't mean it's going to go away. It just means it wouldn't be part of what they're proposing to happen at this point in time. It would revert back to the county CIP funds to presumably fund that at some point. So, yeah.
Okay, Brown?
Is there any, okay, no other public comment?
Just Officer Brown.
Okay, is he, okay, on Saratoga?
You were on.
Because Richard wanted to comment too.
Oh, on Saratoga or on what we were talking about?
I think Richard wanted to comment on what we were talking about the last time, right?
Yeah.
So let's see if Richard, no good, Officer Brown. I'm sorry.
I've got a question for Alex Morton. I know there was a home invasion effort on Ridgeview Drive in April. In what category does that fit? Is that a property crime or what have you? You didn't mention home invasion at all relative to your example.
Yeah, so yeah, that would fall within the it's a burglary, so it's a property crime. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thanks again, Alex, for sharing with us the information, and please keep us appraised if trends change. This is the time frame where a lot of people have their garage doors open. It's springtime and summertime, and I think that is more vulnerability than in the wintertime when things tend to be locked down a little bit more. So, and there's all kinds of cars and people walking down the streets. And so, yeah, I think there's more susceptibility. So thank you for keeping us informed, and appreciate it. And with that, we'll move to Officer Brown and his presentation.
Can I share my screen? Is that possible?
Please. Yeah, we knew this was coming, Andrew, so please.
So I'm just looking for an option to share it on my end.
Should be on the bottom.
Yeah, nothing. I think I probably had to be made a.
Yeah, make him a co-host.
Oh yeah, let me see if I can make you a panelist. Let me see.
Okay.
Where did we go?
Either that or you
Here, I'll
make him a
promote you to
co-host either way.
panelist.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay, see if that works.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right.
Does it show at the bottom now?
Yeah, so here it comes.
All right, good.
All right. All right, so we're talking about, so May is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. I'm gonna really go as quick and turn my video on, as quick and overview as I can. I don't wanna get too in detail, but we're gonna talk about motorcycle safety in general. Things are warming up. There's a reason why May in California is Motorcycle Safety Awareness Month. Everyone's getting their bikes out. I, in fact, just spent a few $100 on some new batteries for my motorcycles, and things are getting going. So I'm pretty stoked that the weather's getting good. Let me see what I can do to proceed this forward. There we go. So first thing we want to talk about helmets. we want to make sure we're wearing DOT approved helmets. Right there on the left, those are actors in a show, but likely those are called generally novelty helmets. They're stickered saying that they shouldn't be used on the road, but just make sure that you're using DOT approved helmets. And I got a good reason why. So here's some images from Snell. So these impacts in a DOT approved helmet or a Snell, even beyond DOT approved helmet, it's got that foam, okay, so that we can absorb that impact, keep the brain healthy, keep the skull intact when the impact does happen. There's another reason why. Chief, you've probably seen something like this on the side of the road. These helmets save lives guaranteed. Right there is a great example of something just wearing down, getting caught. A motorcyclist or the motorcycle themselves getting caught in between axles of a car, something like that. And this is going to save somebody's life right there. So make sure you're wearing the helmet all the time. California state law requires it. And it's very easy to see the difference. So here's a non-compliant and then a compliant helmet. There's not that kind of buffer in that non-compliant helmet there. So we want to make sure we're wearing those DOT approved helmets all the time, every time. E-bikes. So I love the segue onto, you're talking about e-bikes, John, about the electronic assist bikes. This right here is an electronic scooter. I just Google, this is a known brand, Extreme makes these, and it's hilarious. Look at that right there. It says Cabo Cruiser Elite Max 60 volt electric scooter DUI, right? So a lot of people think, oh, I don't have to have a license. I can just ride that thing down the road. I can drive on a suspended license and I'll be fine in the bike lane. The answer is no. So this right here is a scooter. It's classified as a scooter. So this right here is identical classification in the vehicle code as what you would see like those bird scooters or those rental scooters or the scooters that I see a lot of juveniles riding to school. This is classified under that same vehicle code. What do you have to ride that on the road? You have to have a valid Class C driver license, and you have to be wearing at least a bicycle helmet if you're under 18. You don't have to have vehicle registration. You don't have to have an M1 or M2 endorsement. So this is kind of becoming a big thing. And that kind of brings us into our multimodal transportation. I always talk about that, but let's talk about electronic assist bicycles. If you're getting an electronic assist bicycle, just understand there's a bunch of different qualifications. What can you operate? What can't you operate? Can it be on the road? Can it not be on the road? Because you can go onto Walmart or Amazon right now and you can buy an electronic bike that has a 2,000 watt motor today. If you put that on the road in the state of California, you're riding a moped if it has pedals, or you're riding a motorcycle if it has no pedals. So understand that you're subject to registration, headlight, taillight, turn signals, brake lights, M1 motorcycle class endorsement, and all the above, registration, everything. So we have people call us all the time and say, hey, I have this bike, I got this motor for it. I said, well, how fast can it go? Oh, it can go like 40, 60 miles an hour. Holy cow. And they're putting these things on beach cruisers or something with just rubber brakes on the thing. And they're turning out to not be the best decision for some of these people that end up crashing. Add-on motors. This is a big thing in this county right now, but not just this county. This is big all over the United States. I can go on to Amazon right now and buy one of these, a low end for about $200, high end about $900 to $1,000. It's a kit that adds on to this bicycle. And as you can see on that front brake, that thing's got rubber brakes with a gasoline motor that can assist that bicycle to go probably 25 to 45 plus miles an hour, plus additional weight that bicycle is not designed to handle. So that setup right there, that picture, is not legal in the state of California. You're not allowed to operate that bicycle on any public roadway in the state of California. If the officer pulls you over, you say, well, officer, it's a moped. It's got bicycle pedals and it also has a gasoline motor. Okay. Well, if it's a moped, sir, where's your M2 driver license? Where's your motorcycle helmet? where's your registration? Where's your headlight? Where's your tail light? Where's your brake light? Where's your turn signals? Where's your reflectors? Where's everything else that is needed on that bicycle? And also the catch-all be-all for that one, it is not designed for on-road use, period. It is just a Frankenstein that you've put together. Electric scooter. So going back now, this is the familiar electric scooter, right? We see kids riding on Silver Valley Parkway to go to school. We see them all over the place, and per California Vehicle Code, you must have a Class C driver license valid to operate this on any public roadway, sidewalk, or bike lane. So parents, this is coming as a shock to many of you. I know this is coming as a shock to many of you, but we must do our homework when we're buying our kids fun new toys. This is not allowed to be operated by any unlicensed operator, period. The same rules that apply to this apply to the GoPeds that have the gasoline engines on the back. They have to be ridden with bicycle helmets when they're on the road with a valid Class C driver license if you're under 18, and they cannot go over 15 miles an hour. There's a whole lot of other miscellaneous laws when it comes to these about how they can be ridden, where they need to be ridden, what operations and what turning movements you are and are not allowed to do while riding these. But know that a lot of people think, oh, it's a new technology. California law hasn't caught up with this. No, California law was in place long before this design was implemented and brought out. A lot of people think, well, it must have been that they required licenses after I bought this for my kid 2 years ago. Nope. You've been required to have a Class C driver license valid to be operating any of those on any highway in the state of California. So just make sure, and highway includes roads, all public roadways. So just make sure you are all doing your homework, knowing what you're doing when you're out there, riding all these new fun things that we get to ride on California state roads, but just make sure you're following the law. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of highway patrol officers that are going to be ticketing children while they're riding their scooters to school at 7:30 in the morning on Silver Valley Parkway. But I know just from tonight that our officers working in Serrano have pulled over 2 kids already and just given verbal warnings. So it is a thing. We're doing it, and we're doing enforcement on that. And the main goal is we want them to be safe. These things can rocket away. They are fast, and any modification to them is illegal also. So I guess that's about it for my motorcycle safety. I'm sure we might have a couple of questions.
So Andrew, did you send the information to Cindy so we can include it in our minutes and stuff? Because I think the one table you had might be instructive and helpful. Certainly the figures are helpful for people to categorize and understand what the difference in terminology is for these different types of electric and gas powered vehicles. Because it is a little confusing to the average person. They're sold as a scooter, but sometimes they're not a scooter. You got to really understand what the category is. And certainly highway legal, if I remember, still requires 160 cc if you're talking about a gas engine. There's certain size, horsepower, braking capabilities for highway use. Aren't those still in place?
So it just engine displacement goes to the classification, the vehicle code classification of what that vehicle is. So is it a motorcycle 400 VC, or is it a motor driven cycle, or is it a moped or a motor scooter? So those are the main 3. And the difference between a motorcycle and a motor driven cycle is engine displacement when we're talking about gasoline.
Right.
And then when we're talking about electric, if it can't be defined by other vehicle codes, meaning it can go faster than 35, 25 miles an hour, then it would be defined as a motorcycle. So we got Zero bikes, Zero motorcycle manufacturers, electronic bikes, which has nothing to do with engine displacement because they're not gasoline.
Right.
So yeah, it is something that you could spend your entire career trying to wrap your mind around, and it is big. So yeah, I'll forward that table over.
Yes.
And that gets good information as to for these e-bikes that are coming out. Probably every single major motorcycle manufacturer is either currently selling e-bikes or in the process of selling e-bikes. Ducati, Yamaha, Harley Davidson has a huge line of e-bikes out now. So it is a huge thing, and it's a big moneymaker for these manufacturers because they can make them. They're small, but you can sell them for $3,000-$4,000. Where I can turn around and I can buy a full-size dirt bike that's street legal for just the same amount, but people are throwing down so much money on these e-bikes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. It's an interesting evolution of the e-bikes and their capabilities, because obviously electric motors have a lot of torque and they can accelerate very quickly to the point that they actually beat motorcycles. I mean, it's like comparing a Tesla with your normal automobile.
It doesn't take much power to get up to 25, 35 miles an hour. And then suddenly you're talking about now it's classified as a motorcycle. Now you need registration, M1 licensing, all that stuff. For an electronic motor, that doesn't not take a lot when you're talking about how light these vehicles are.
Very good. Appreciate all that. So any comments or questions from our leadership team at this point for Andrew? Not seeing none. Is there any public comments or questions?
Doesn't look like it, no.
Okay.
No, Richard's not.
Go ahead.
Yes, Officer Brown, is there any good literature on the CHP website where people can go to and kind of go through this quagmire of the technical and qualification stuff?
Yeah, so chp.ca.gov is going to have a lot of information on there. I'm going to go through it. I honestly didn't go through it before this presentation, so I don't want to talk out of turn. But yes, so I want to warn you that manufacturers are clearly going to want to sell their product. So for example, I was looking at an online seller of these gasoline attaching motors. So the Frankenstein bicycle motors. And it was in there frequently asked questions. Are these legal in the United States? And their answer is, well, yes, but you should always check with your local municipality and laws. chp.ca.gov, and then just type in motorcycles. It'll likely send you to our CMSP, our California Motorcycle Safety Program, which I need to push during this. California Motorcycle Safety Program is administered by the California Highway Patrol. It is classroom education for new and experienced riders put on by community colleges and venues all over the state. They're up and rolling. I know probably more than 50% of them are going right now, and you can enroll. It's a pay to do it class. If you're under 21, you get a discount, and that's one way to get your M1 license. And also it encourages you, and you can do practical. You do 2 days of riding in their closed course, and you can practice your skills and do some really cool stuff. And they have advanced courses as well. So the California Motorcycle Safety Program, CMSP. But on there, if you're not finding what you're looking for, give me a call, and then I'm going to put this table over to Cindy so it can go up there.
Yeah.
Thank you. One final note, I'd like to thank you for your help out on Summer Drive and looking at what's going on out there, and also the Bass Lake Villages area in general, because obviously John Davies very involved with this. A lot of the public's involved with it, but it's not an easy thing to try to resolve. Enforcement's part of it. Working with the fire department to look at some kind of a traffic modification, traffic calming technique that's consistent with the engine requirements. There's a whole lot of things tied into this. But again, I just want to thank you for your assistance, because I think even posting the speed limit signs out there, which DOT was able to do, is going to help at some level with people recognizing they should be slowing down and abiding by the speed limits and not just ignoring it. You're always going to have exceptions, but I think that was a big help, hopefully, to help that community in the longer term. And there's more work to be done. I guess I'll leave it at that. But
yes, multi-pronged approach, our enforcement, and then with collision statistic gathering. Unfortunately, we've had a lot more than we used to. They're on Summer Drive. My goodness. So I just want to encourage all those who know anyone on Summer Drive or live over in that neighborhood. It is on the Highway Patrol's radar and radar.
Literally, right?
We're getting some additional enforcement out there, hopefully, and we're letting our shifts know. Yeah.
Okay, very good. With that, I'm not seeing any other comments or questions. So thank you again, Officer Brown. Appreciate the updates, and particularly the motorcycle e-bike discussion. It'll be very helpful. And with that, we're going to go to Chief Lilly, and understand you have some information you want to share with us, including a video, right, Chief? So
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much. So as you all know, it's been quite the year, and it's been warm. We haven't had a lot of rain, and it seems like our fire season is coming a little earlier this year. So over the weekend on Saturday, you might have seen the smoke in the air or read something about it. So I figured I could share my screen here and just give you a little idea of what we had happen. So I'll do that now. All right. Get this started here, and here we go. You see that okay?
yeah, perfect.
Okay. So last Saturday, somewhere just a little afternoon, we got a call out on Salmon Falls Road for a vegetation fire, which for May 1st, at kind of earlier in the day, we weren't expecting to see what we saw. So from White Rock Road, kind of near Pete's Coffee, you could see a large column of smoke in the air. As we were approaching the scene, we had a pretty good vegetation fire out there right near the Salmon Falls Bridge at Salmon Falls Road. So this is looking from an online picture that I got actually from the Watermark subdivision out there, looking at kind of giving an idea of the fire conditions at the time. And again, we found this to be a little bit unusual. It's definitely earlier in the year to have this type of fire behavior. On the left, there'll be a video, just kind of as I was driving up to the scene to give you a little perspective, and then the right video will play here as well. If anybody's ever been out on Darrington Trail, this is the fire started right at the base near Darrington Trail. And as I'm driving across the bridge, you had fire advancing, working its way to the north, kind of up Salmon Falls Road away from the river right there. To give you an idea of the trail that runs across and the boundaries of the fire as it was advancing along Salmon Falls Road, and then also working its way out to what would be, I guess, the general direction, a western direction. There's another video of the fire conditions at the time, and that's all brush out there that we have burning. And as the wind would kick up, it would advance and start moving along pretty quickly. Here's going to be an air tanker coming in from the right to the left side of the screen, making a drop to stop the advance of the fire. So from the resource perspective, you had all but one of the El Dorado Hills engines out there, the rescue fire engine, county fire engines out there. Cameron Park had fire engine out there, and of course Cal Fire. Cal Fire hasn't reached their peak staffing. So what we found on this fire is it was mostly your local government, your local response firefighters with only 2 or 3 of the Cal Fire rigs. They don't reach their peak staffing until June. Here's one of their new Black Hawk helicopters that Cal Fire has in service this year. These are nice because they drop a lot more water than their old helicopters. So it's going to be a good tool to use this year. Kind of an example, what you see in this picture, just behind that helicopter, you'll see the orange and inmate crew working their way up the hill. And then the yellow crew in between is actually 3 of our El Dorado Hills engine companies. So that's engine 386 and 387 and an engine off of Bass Lake, engine 86. We're all out there working their way kind of right off the Darrington Trail up. And I'm going to show you a video in a minute. They get in a pretty bad situation, what we call a near miss. We actually had 2 of our firefighters transported to the hospital. They're both going to be okay. One will be back next week, but the other we expect to be out for a couple months. So what happened here is the firefighters, this is a very steep hill. The picture doesn't show it as well, but they had kind of a spot fire develop down below them. And when you're in that thick manzanita brush, it burns really hot and fast. And you can't see that fire. We can see it because we're looking at an aerial view, but when you're on the ground, you really can't see what's happening around you. So it ends up being a real dangerous position here. Hopefully I can get this video to advance it up, and you'll see what happens to those guys here right here in just a second. You're going to see them run. So the fire is developing, and you're going to see that's them running right now, and you're going to see firefighters tumbling down the hill. If you look at the guys in the yellow, our guys, you see them kind of tumbling, working their way down the hill. So that thick manzanita brush is definitely a concern for us. So that was an interesting incident for us. And I'll stop my screen share here now and continue on. But anyways, the firefighters gonna be okay. Like I said, one's gonna be out a couple months and the other one's gonna be back next week. So just it was unusual for this early in the year to have those type of fire conditions. So I'll kind of use that opportunity just to remind you, everybody and their neighbors, get out there and start that vacant lot clearances if you have lots near you, or clear that brush behind your house, and encourage your neighbors to do the same. And that's the best thing we can do as a community, I think, to protect everybody. So any questions on that?
Questions from leadership team? Richard?
Yeah, Mike, question for you. I'm trying to understand the vegetation management program. Here in El Dorado Hills, we have some large undeveloped spaces with lots of acreage and lots of becoming very tender material. What criteria exists that applies to these large acreage spaces?
Yeah, and it would vary by area to area. So for all your big subdivisions, when they're built now, we have them work in what we call wildfire safe plan. So in the approval of the project, you end up with the benefit of having planned vegetation management yearly. That's especially beneficial when you have a funding mechanism in place to pay for that. That becomes a key component, as John will tell you, with the Bass Lake Hills. We've been fighting with an area out there for a long time. In some of your larger parcels that are not developed, it becomes a more complex situation. The county's working on their vegetation management ordinance, which allows for some opportunities to help address that. In El Dorado Hills, we have a vacant lot program that we're real proud of that's very successful. But I do understand that there are specifically, maybe you'd be thinking about behind you in that general area, which I understand, that we're in a transition period back there in that area where they haven't developed. And when they do, we'll have the benefit of more fuel reduction going on. But I do understand your point. There are definitely some gaps in the program. That doesn't mean, though, that we can't keep advancing those with the owners of the property and trying to get some compliance. I know we had some recent success over near Sita's house, which was great, with that clearance that's now occurring. And we just keep working on that problem as we can and see opportunities. It's not a perfect system, though, for sure. I understand that.
So Richard, the only thing I would add is the county vegetation management ordinance requires 100-foot defensible space for any improved residential structure. That isn't enough given the scenarios of what Mike saw and recorded out there in that fire. These fires are like a hurricane from the standpoint of once they get going with the winds, how quickly they move. And 100 feet really is nothing in today's clearance, safety perspective. So right now, that's all we can require for somebody's lot abuts up to yours is 100-foot clearance back onto their lot. But if it's 40 acres, that's just a strip, right? That, unfortunately, in today's world doesn't give you much defense, but that's what the state regulations are. And they're talking about changing that. And the state will tell you that it's a function of terrain. Obviously, if you're very sloped terrains, you should have more than 100 feet, et cetera, et cetera. But it all becomes a CAL FIRE driven, state driven type of leadership role from the standpoint of what the county can then come back in and reinforce and put into our ordinances, because we never want to go beyond what the state requirements are, because now we're incurring additional taxpayer costs and stuff that exceed what the state is basically recommending. So it's always a delicate line, but that's what we have right now is 100-foot defensible space, and that's all we can try to enforce to.
I agree, but and make sure you work on your own of mitigating what you can. That 100 feet does give us a chance to get on the risk assessment. If the engine's driving down the street, they're going to look for the person that did the clearance, because it's also safer for the firefighters and more successful for those resources to invest their time on your lot. But I also encourage you, keep your gutters clean, because if you can imagine a rain shower of hot embers falling on your roof, that is definitely something we can all do very easily. And when we have these oak trees, and you know how challenging they are with dropping leaves and making a mess, but if you can get up there every so often or hire somebody and get those gutters cleaned out, especially in the valleys that seem neglected, that will make a big difference on preventing your house from surviving or allow it to survive.
Yeah. It just seems that I see a lot of individual lots that are now more clear than before, and drive by them, and then drive by the area like Pedregal or the old golf course or the land along Beatty, and think, now, realistically, if those start, I don't know who's going to stop those, except the houses on Patterson and Knights Way, and it's scary.
There's no question, lots of work to do.
So the other thing I'll remind everybody of is there's state responsibility area and local responsibility area. And a lot of the areas around El Dorado Hills, even though there's development right on one side, are still state responsibility area, which means CAL FIRE has the lead responsibility for the vending and prevention programs. It's not our local fire department. I mean, they work collectively, but I've always argued that the local responsibility area maps are underscored. We should show more of the local responsibility because that's where the real step up in taking that on is. And I think the state probably receives, I'm going to say CAL FIRE probably receives resources because they have this large SRA responsibility, which is good, but is that really the level of response you expect as your primary responder? We know we have auto aids and everything else, so everybody's going to come when there's a notification. But with respect to the air attacks, the helicopters, the bombers, McClellan is the location where the aircraft are stored. I'm not sure if the helicopters are out there as well, Chief, but I assume there's some helicopters probably there because that's a CAL FIRE type of operation. But when we get into the fire season and they're deployed all over the state, we can't expect to get the resource call we had here locally for a fire like we had. It's early in the season. They were available. We're very fortunate. We're close to McClellan. We got the assistance. It's not going to be guaranteed once this season really kicks into gear and you get into June and July and August that those resources will be available to us locally. So that's the other major consideration is very limited resources at the state level when you look at the magnitude of the threat, right? So.
True statements. And I would say I would end it with, we are very fortunate to be a well-staffed fire department and the firefighters are training and they're competent. So the response times to your house are better in our area with the number of firefighters, and that will make a difference to help mitigate and keep fires smaller. But nothing is perfect. I get that, but I really think we're fortunate with what we have going here in town, thanks to all of our residents and the support we get through those processes there of collecting revenue. But it makes a big difference.
Totally agree. We are blessed with the services we have, but this year is going to be a challenge for everybody. I mean, that's just the facts. So hopefully,
hey, John, I'll just like to add, the fire department issued over 3,500 letters, vacant lot letters to people with vacant lots in the last 6 weeks or so that they got to clear it. And, this is more letters because of the new laws and regulations. This is more letters than we've ever issued in the past. Historically, we seem to get pretty good compliance with those letters. People get out, they hire someone and they do the clearance. There's always, 50 to 100 that don't. And then we have to go out and get bids from gardeners and cleanup crews to clear them. And then those become liens on the tax records for those properties. But the best way to put out a fire is to prevent a fire from ever happening. So it's really important that you clear your vacant, if you have a vacant lot, do the clearance that's required because that's going to prevent the fire from starting and it's going to prevent it from spreading to your neighbors who have done what they can, because no matter how much they clear, there's still the concern with wind and canopy fires. As Chief Lilly said, when those embers go 50, 100, a quarter of a mile out, and then suddenly the flames are everywhere and it's just hard to stop something like that. So prevention is what has to be done.
Yeah,
good point. Did you have your hand up, John Pomeroy? Okay, I'm sorry. I saw some movement. I wasn't sure if you were raising your hand, but we are going to bring attention to that through a proclamation I'm bringing before the board to make tomorrow to make sure everybody understands the severity of this fire season. And it's a fire safety awareness type of proclamation. So hopefully we're getting the word out to people. This is the year to spend some more time providing even more defensible space and other safeguards from your home as opposed to other years. This is not going to be a typical year. Based upon last year's history, knowing the number of fires in the proclamation, we state the number of fires that have happened this year in the state of California compared to a year ago at this same point in time. And it's almost double the amount of fires that have been declared, if I remember right. So we're already off to a fast season in terms of fires within California. And as we know, we're just now starting to dry up. But things like manzanitas fuel, it's ripe all the time because of the oils. It isn't just the ground moisture and grasses and that sort of thing that create those fires. It's a type of vegetation. So we're always going to be suspect to that. But good conversation. Thank you, Chief Lilly, for sharing, and keep up the good work. So was there any public input on this one? I didn't see any pop up.
No, we don't. Oh, Stephanie,
Okay.
just unmute.
There we go. Just a quick comment on the new builds around El Dorado Hills and the fire safety. Like they're cutting up the wood chips and stuff and shooting them around the brand new houses. And I just was wondering what the purpose of that was, because those are obviously very flammable. I just was wondering why the new builders are allowing that to go onto the properties of the new homes. Just a question, I guess.
Stephanie, are you referring to a certain spot? I mean, I was just trying to follow I didn't hear all of what you said.
Yeah, the new buildings, like say the new Lennar over here in El Dorado Hills, all the new home builders that are putting the flammable wood chips or wood shavings or wood, whatever they are, they're putting them all around the communities and all around the houses. And I was just wondering why that is allowed in such a flammable Northern California or Southern California lands.
Right, I think you're speaking of residential landscape park,
Yes.
I think,
Yes,
if I
I am.
understand you right.
Yes.
Yeah, there is no, they're not prohibited from doing that. There is a big difference though, and I wouldn't say bark is wonderful. We would love to see everything concrete the whole distance, but it is much better than grass or flammable shrubs and things like that. I understand your point though. Generally, a fire in that type of material will smolder as opposed to flame with long flame lengths. But I understand your concern. There's different types of it too that become more concerning than others. The real fine gorilla hair type stuff versus a thicker material, a thicker bark. So definitely differences in how they perform.
Yeah,
But really, the biggest concern would be the shrubs and trees and grasses around your house, for sure.
If I remember right, the CAL FIRE recommendation is 20 feet away from your house. Don't use any of those types of bark products.
Right.
Because again, it's an ignition source, can be an ignition source depending upon the type of bark and stuff for the residents. And so a lot of people use it in their landscaping, but it is a risk factor. It's not as high as a lot of other more flammable materials, but you get a lot of heat and you get winds blowing and a little bit of an ember, as you know, Mike.
They'll burn on that.
It just takes off. So if there's fuel there, it's going to burn.
The other, and not to belabor the meeting, but the other nice thing that we have going on is the new codes for our type of community where you're in the wildland interface requires stucco exterior and non-flammable building construction and thicker dual pane windows and stuff. So there are some other good benefits too, and newer construction, at least, that they capture the benefit of.
Very good. Anybody else in the public? I'm not seeing any. So thanks again, Mike. That concludes our public safety reports. And with that, I'm going to turn to Glenn on economic development. Tell us what CDAC is doing for us. Glenn, you there?
There you go. Having a little trouble unmuting. Okay, we first of all, thank everybody for sticking around, those of you who stayed. Community economic development, a couple things we're looking at. Alternative energy, there was some interest in trying to see about the opportunity for a cogeneration plant using forest lumber waste, down trees and things like that that's in the forest. Not sure if it's viable, but we're going to do some research. We do have a housing subcommittee. I know there was some discussion earlier. There's a lot of housing committees from a lot of groups within the county, kind of just keeping our eyes on it. Of course, our concern is workforce housing. The county fairgrounds, we're still getting some education on that, hoping to get a historic review of the fairgrounds next week when CDAC does meet on Thursday. Some observations, there's quite a bit happening of local development in El Dorado Hills and some of the surrounding communities. Some of that was, delayed because of COVID. A lot of it was on hold, waiting to see what was going on with the economy, but there seems to be a lot of money in the economy these days. The town center apartments are coming closer to being done. If you've seen it, I think it's fairly impressive. I think it was a good compromise, the height that they have. I understand they had 600 applications for 200 units. So as soon as they open, I think it's going to be full with people backing up. The CSD is looking at, I guess, has bought a large parcel of land. I'm not sure if it was 35 or 50 acres, just south of the business park off of Latrobe. And their intention is to develop that as their main community complex. So the 11 acres potentially that's been discussed for a potential senior center by the El Dorado Hills Boulevard Fire Station. From what I'm hearing, the CSD may not be interested. I think they want to get all of their services on one big multi-use, multi-generation site. So it'll take a long time. It'll be a lot of projects, but it's an interesting effort and definitely things going on in the community. A little outside our area, Missouri Flat, I guess ground was broken on a new health center. They're looking pretty close to getting movement, I guess, off of Bass Lake Road and Highway 50, development there. That'll be some mixed-use retail, a hotel. South on Latrobe again of the Montana Center, they're looking to expand that center with more retail, potentially a hotel. We keep hearing about those. I did hear today, it looks like Costco is submitted their revised plan to the planning department, that they've kind of resolved how they're going to utilize the space for parking. And it looks like they're going to move forward. A lot of things are opening up in the economy. We're seeing more development. A lot of it's been kind of put on hold the past couple of years, waiting to see what's been going on with the economy. So as far as things that are going on now coming to development, a little late for CDAC, but we're still keeping our eyes open so we know what's going on within our communities and seeing how we may help. CDAC is made up of a very diverse group representing the entire county. There's 9 members. There was some issues recently with some county-owned buildings, City of Placerville, by the government buildings, I guess the old post office and another building, 2 competing historical groups, one art focused and one history focused. We're vying for those buildings. I think there was a solution, and Supervisor Heidel may talk to that, where I think each group is getting one of the buildings to develop for their own historic plans. And we have representative of both groups on CDAC. So we do see a lot of opinions. We're trying to encourage all the members of CDAC to participate. And I think we've got some pretty good momentum, and there's a lot of things going on in the county. And I think we all kind of need to watch out on what's going on and be aware, because you're going to see more development. You're going to see the Central El Dorado Hills plan. You know, we're talking a lot of years, but we're seeing things move forward now.
Thank you, Glenn. It's a good summary. Any questions from our leadership team? All right, any questions from the public on this subject? Not seeing any new ones. All right, thanks again, Glenn. Let's skip over infrastructure. I'm going to give that one in John Vanya's absence. Let's go to good governance. Richard.
Yes, Supervisor Heidel gave me some information. The sheriff has made a request, started a request into county government regarding the acquisition of body-worn cameras. In this day and age, engagement of law enforcement with citizens has become a significant media focus and interest of particular interest groups. Realistically, the problem between law enforcement and citizens is hugely and greatly exaggerated and miscommunicated, very frankly. However, because if it bleeds, it leads. If it burns, it turns. And therefore, media will portray this in total irrelevance to the frequency that it occurs. It is estimated that there are something like 20 million law enforcement contacts with citizens every year, and it may be 40 million because the frequency of contacts that don't get recorded may double that. The sheriff has presented some factual information about body cameras. I do believe that it's an issue that is not one that should be universally applied with a broad brush, because frankly, I don't believe it's been proven that it's needed. The occurrence of any contact with any citizen becomes a matter of record, a record that can be requested. And in this litigious society, which we have, it is just fodder for people to pursue cases, to see if there is a settlement value. And given some of the rare occurring settlements that have been publicized, this is great incentive to pursue this. So there's a number of issues, I think, that need to be reviewed and understood before the primary issue of should these things be acquired, the body worn camera. I think we need to look at the incidence of events in our county as it relates to how the record keeping would be of value. I think we need to better understand what is our frequency of citizen complaints? What is the frequency of use of force? What legal actions have been initiated against the El Dorado County because of law enforcement concerns? In a sense, I think we need to look at the causation factors that say this would be a good device to have. To have it universally, I think it just creates an additional financial burden on the county and on the sheriff's department. And I think fundamentally, and I think this sheriff has done an excellent job in the development and the training of his personnel on the Civil Service Commission. And I cannot comment about cases, but I find very thorough oversight in our sheriff's department. That is the best preventative circumstance that can exist in our community relative to the law enforcement. I've given some information to the supervisor for him to consider on this, and we'll see what transpires. Just for your information, the sheriff presently has in-car cameras. These are cameras mounted in the vehicles that will record events that are in front of that area where the camera is mounted. And oftentimes you've seen these videos show up, not so much on news, but in clever little anecdotal incidents that have been happening, but occasionally when the arrest is occurring in front of the police car. County presently has those and maintains the technology and everything else. Also, the technology in this arena is rapidly evolving. And so the capabilities are fantastic, but the expenses are paralleling that growth. So that's the issue. I think it needs to be thoroughly considered, discussed, and analyzed. That's all I really have, John. Going further, really, I think is not necessary.
Yeah, and we're just getting into the first end of this. I will mention that it's been agendized for the Board of Supervisors May 11th meeting. The sheriff will be making a presentation and presenting, I'm sure, the facts that he put in his summary reports and maybe more details. So we'll be taking obviously questions from the board, questions from the public. Yeah, and I think, we just need to understand more about what the threat is here and where we're going, and is this the appropriate time, and is this a priority expenditure compared to other things? So we'll start that dialogue on May 11th, and we'll see how it evolves. But it would affect our budget plans for the 2021-2022 budget. So we have to set all of those pretty much in place if it's going to get funded this year within about the next 30 days. But yeah, this will be the first time the board's had a chance to receive the presentation and then start a dialogue on it. So anybody who's interested in that, I'd ask you to stay tuned, participate. I loved everybody's inputs on it because I'm sure there's a lot of different opinions on this. And I haven't really drawn any conclusions yet. I'm still in a data gathering mode. So, but I would appreciate anybody who has thoughts on it to participate in that. And we'll look forward to see what happens there. So thanks again, Richard, for that. Appreciate it. Any questions from leadership team to Richard? Okay, I'm not seeing any from the public, right? Okay, so let's move on to healthy communities, the part where we have to have good practices, right, to stay healthy, including vaccinations. So see that.
That's right. Okay. So a couple things, just a little update to date in California, 41% of our population over 16 years old is vaccinated. That's fully vaccinated. In El Dorado County, fully vaccinated is 37.5%. So we're doing pretty good. A couple things I wanted, this is kind of a positive thing I wanted to say. So we have an County Opioid Coalition meeting on May 25th. I'll be attending. And I did learn the positive benefits of exercise. So all of us who've been maybe sitting on the sofa too much, watching too much TV, drinking too much wine, exercise does reduce your anxiety, depression, and stress. It improves quality of life and physical health. And now that's short burst aerobic as well as long-term aerobic exercise. And for people who are struggling with alcohol addiction, it's been proven to reduce cravings and also significantly reduces from the pre to post exercise cravings, which is a prolonged post benefit from exercise. It reduces negative moods and anxiety as well. So that's a positive. So since last month, Johnson & Johnson's been cleared. It was cleared as of April 25th. That's the one-shot vaccine. Everyone was over, so 16 years plus is eligible for vaccination as of April 15th. Keep in mind that Pfizer is approved for people over 16 years old and Moderna is for people over 18. Same thing with Johnson & Johnson or Janssen vaccine. Couple changes that we already mentioned, but the myturn.ca.gov is where people can register to find out if they're eligible for vaccination, which is most people. They should give notifications and prompt you for setting up your first and second dose and show you places to get vaccinated. It's been a little tweaky. So they recommend if you didn't get your notification of your second dose to re-register on their website. And then now there's another website that I just checked out. It's incredible. It's to help find vaccination clinics within a certain mile radius of your home. And it's called vaccinefinder.org. And that includes vaccination clinics in Safeway, Walgreens, CVS, Costco, Sam's Club. I mean, it is all over the place. Also, please check your primary health provider. And if you need help registering for the MyTurn website, there's a chat function at the bottom of that website, as well as a phone number you can call, and that's 833-422-4255. You can call 7 days a week. I've personally helped people get registered for vaccines, and what I've discovered is you can actually go to cvs.com, walgreens.com, go to some different websites. I've helped people get vaccinations in Folsom, other places around here, Roseville. And sometimes it's as quick as the next day. Also, if people are want to get a vaccine now and they're past the 3-week or 4-week mark, there's a short list that we're collaborating with the county, and you can let Cindy know, and she can also personally let me know. My email address is here, and we can forward your information to the county to get you on a short list, which really means you need to be able to get there by in 30 minutes. So it's the same day when they have leftover doses have already been drawn up, and they don't want to waste those doses. So they'll call you towards the end of the day and let you know, hey, if you can get here in 30 minutes, we can vaccinate you. You do have to get the same vaccine for your second dose. That's very important. Let's see here. And then there's a new a rent relief program that's in the county. We're offering that information on that. That's for renters as well as landlords. And the phone number for that is 833-430-2122. That's it. I want to keep it short.
Thank you, Sita. Very thorough. I appreciate that. And yeah, my impression is the vaccine is more readily available today, clearly, than it was a month ago. So people really should have no problem finding a place. If they need help, we can give them the help. So the availability of the vaccine itself is tremendously improved over what it was just a short time ago. So even with extending it down to 16 and over for the certain types of vaccines and 18 and over for the other vaccines, yeah, I think that really opens up the ability to get the vaccines and hopefully at some point get to what they call herd immunity, if we can ever really define what that is. There's a lot of definitions. I'm not sure I have one yet that I like, so I'm still looking. But anyway, we're certainly getting in a better situation, a better position. And I think we're still looking forward to see what the governor does around the middle of June, when he said that he's anticipating opening up the state. So I'm hoping he holds to that, because there's a lot of things that the county, is starting to plan around, things like having the public come back to our meetings, the Board of Supervisors chambers and all those things. We're in phase 1 of a 3-phase. We get to that point where the governor opens it up, then we can have the public back and have people sitting there, as opposed to having to be socially distanced differently than what the normal, chair arrangement is and that sort of thing. So the amount of participants greatly improves for in-person participation. So a lot of things are kind of hinged on what happens here in the next less than a month and a half, right? To get us to June 15th. So that's the thing I'm hoping really goes forward and it doesn't get delayed. Things like our fair planning that's happening out in September, if I remember right. Those things have to all come together if we're going to have a traditional El Dorado County fair again. It's going to be separated from the standpoint of the livestock sales and stuff. You have to do that early in the season because that's when the livestock is ready to be sold and marketed, et cetera, versus other things. But they are planning on a fair, and that's in September, and I think it's safe, barring some major change. But I'm really hoping we get to have some form of a fair that the public can come to this year, as opposed to what we had to do last year. So those are kinds of things that the county is planning around, and it really requires us to open up the state and let this happen. So hopefully we get to this point where people feel comfortable that we can get there, herd immunity, whatever you want to call it, that we met that threshold. So thank you again for your report. Any questions or comments from our leadership team? Any questions or comments from the public? Okay, not seeing any. APAC, and you kind of told us already, John, what your next month's agenda is, but please add anything you'd like, or just repeat it, whatever.
Just that it'll be a virtual meeting. It's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. We had discussed, hey, there was so much interest in this over the many years that it's been proposed that maybe we might have to do some sort of hybrid presentation. We don't have enough time. I don't think the standards are loose enough in terms of what the state allows. I know we talked to the CSD, we can't use their building. So it will be a virtual meeting. Serrano Associates will make their presentation. APAC members will ask questions. The public will ask questions. We'll be respectful. It's about learning about what these new changes are, about learning about the VMT implementation, and just learning what the project is now, what the alternatives are. And I would like to, I would chime in. Glenn and Supervisor Heidel made two comments tonight that were, that people I think probably need to focus on. Glenn had mentioned like a lot of developments coming. Yeah, we're kind of at a tipping point in terms of population because we need services to support, 40, 50,000 people. But also a lot of these projects are projects that were approved 20 plus years ago. And Supervisor Heidel mentioned that specific plan developments, it gives flexibilities to property owners, developers, applicants to tailor their project to meet, current need. And Supervisor Heidel also mentioned that, we're not a rural community anymore. And, that hurts some people in their soul. But when you look at what the planning is from the county since 2004 with the general plan, development is supposed to happen here. And, we need to have our eyes open when we think about these projects when they come in, and just have, informed and thoughtful discussions about what the impacts may be, how we can mitigate them. And we're trying to reach consensus where it's a good project for applicants, for the community, and for the county. So expect to see everybody on Wednesday night at 7 p.m.
Good promo. I like it. Thank you. So with that, Cindy.
Okay, anybody left? We've been posting actually a lot of stuff this month. One was the PG&E enhanced vegetation management and safety work that was happening in El Dorado County. It wasn't necessarily in El Dorado Hills, but we wanted people to be aware of what the projects were happening throughout the county. Put out the Bass Lake Road, the closures and the work that's being done out there. There was film role possibilities in El Dorado County. If somebody wants to be an actor or actress in film production, that was an opportunity that we posted online. We did the updates on the Green Means Go, the SACOG project that is now going to be supposed to be pulled off calendar tomorrow. There was a El Dorado County Trails Survey that went out. It's about the trails throughout the county for biking and hiking and stuff. They want to know what you want in the future for the trails in the county. And then there was a very special project, an Earth Day project at Bass Lake Park. It's the plant identification scavenger hunt for a Girl Scout Gold Award candidate. Is that still going on, Mr. Davey?
That's still going on. It's shameless plug. Go help my kid.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, it looked like a really neat thing. I need to get out there and do that. It looked like a great project. So go help have a fun day out at the new Bass Lake Park that they're out there, and then help a Girl Scout candidate there. And then as John talked about the conversation on mobile home parks, they're exploring the sustainability and affordability in the mobile home communities. So we put out a couple of posts on that. We'll put one more out next week with all the updates. The El Dorado Hills Chamber cash recovery rebate has just come back. You get paid to shop. You get $10 back for every $100 you spend in 95762. It's a focus on the locally owned small businesses. So that's a neat
incentive program. There you go. Spend, spend, spend.
And there was, and the last thing is we have a free waste tire disposal. It's just for residential, and you can, it's up to 9 tires per visit. You can take it to the material recovery facility. And that ends June 30th or until the funds are gone. So a lot going on.
I have one more to add. I get to be the guest speaker for the El Dorado Hills Chamber. Featured keynote speaker for this Wednesday, May 5th from 11:30 to 1:30. It's held in person at the El Dorado Hills Community Services District Pavilion Room, or you can participate by Zoom. It's 12 to 1. But I put together my talking points, and they've asked me just to kind of summarize what I believe the state of the county is. And that involves budgetary things and a lot of other considerations, a lot of things that I'm calling challenges. Things that we need to address, but how do we fund them? How do we make sure they get done? And the biggest part of all that is sustainability. How we make sure that once we make a commitment to purchase infrastructure and stuff, that we have the staff and the resources to operate it properly. It's not just one-time money that builds something, it's how do you operate it and maintain it? So it becomes the O&M discussion is more of the challenge, given the fact that the state and the federal government are pushing out a lot of money. We're trying to figure out how to spend it wisely, but that's not an easy determination ultimately. Where do you get the best bang for the buck? That's always a subjective discussion, but we'll take that on and see if we can't be successful with that. So,
and you're also the keynote speaker for El Dorado County Chamber.
But that's not this Wednesday. That's next the 12th, right? Next on the 12th, and that's the county chamber, and they're meeting out at
the country club.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what the name of the country club. It's near Green Springs Ranch. But anyway, if you have any interest in that too, we can inform you on that one. But any questions or comments for Cindy on this one? Seeing none from the public, I'm going to go back very quickly and cover Cold Springs Golf Course. This is the one for the chamber. Richard?
Yeah, the chamber meeting where you're going to be speaking, when is that?
It is this Wednesday, May the 5th. Cinco de Mayo, by the way. Bring your own cerveza. It's from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. and 11:30 really starts the lunch program they have. But it'll be held in the CSD Pavilion as well as on Zoom. So if you want the Zoom link, we can send you the Zoom link if you want to just listen in. But the actual presentation on Zoom is from 12 to 1 because again, 11:30 to 12 is their lunch.
Okay.
Socialization type activity.
would that Zoom link be on the Chamber's website?
It should very
Yes.
much be. We're getting announcements on it and stuff. I've got an announcement here that I guess doesn't include the Zoom link, but yeah, it should be on the Chamber website. They have an RSVP if you want to attend in person, but it probably wouldn't hurt to RSVP even if you're going to attend by Zoom. Just let them know that.
I believe they're also they're streaming it on Facebook as well.
Yes, right. That's they mentioned that Facebook page. Yeah, so you can go on the stream Facebook page if that's your preferred access.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to cover this infrastructure thing very quickly. At Board of Supervisors meeting last month, DOT presented a plan that showed how we're going to use the SB1 funds in the 2021, 2022 and beyond timeframe. There was 5 selected projects based upon the limited funding, 1 for each district. El Dorado Hills, we're going to get 2.5 miles of overlay and improvements on El Dorado Hills Boulevard. The north section of El Dorado Hills Boulevard only this time, which is from Green Valley Road up to Harvard. That's where the improvements will be. The current pavement condition index, the quality of the roadway is a 70. And for those of you that know, we try to keep roads at least above a 70, particularly if they're at ADT, because that's where our high traffic is. And so this was been on the, but it's only 2.5 miles. It includes brushing, ditching, grinding, and paving. ADA improvements, surface treatments, and the thermoplastic markings. It'll start this fall. So sometime, I'm guessing in September, October type of timeframe probably, but it won't complete until the summer or early fall of next year. So what you're going to see, first of all, is the ditching and all that work that goes on in preparation for actually doing the grinding and the treatment of the road. So kind of 2 phases to it. But in total, for all of El Dorado County, we're able to get enough money to fund 21 miles of major improvements. And as I mentioned, 5 different, all one project, major project in each of 5 districts. All the other ones are 4 to 5 miles. We get 2.5 miles. But again, we got a 4-lane road with big shoulders. So I'm sure that probably consumes as much money as some of these 2-lane roads in other parts of the county that they're going to do it. You're going to get twice the mileage if it's a 2-lane road improvement. But just to identify the ones the rest of the county, Bucks Bar, Diamond Springs Road, Greenwood Road, and Cold Creek area are the other 4 areas within the county that will see those SB1s expended for similar road treatment and improvements to what we get in El Dorado Hills. So that's the good news. The bad news is we couldn't do all El Dorado Boulevard, which was my push for a long time. And that was on the SB1 calendar to be fully funded a couple of years ago. And then we found out how much money we're really going to receive from the state, which is far less than what was originally forecast by a factor of 2. We're getting half the money that was originally forecast roughly. So that's why we have to cut the projects in half, I guess is the bottom line. So anyway, that update is the last thing. Our next meeting is Monday, June the 7th. I'm trying to get a speaker to talk about the census process for redistricting, because I think we're headed right into that. And I've reached out to Don Ashton to find out who would be our best county resource for that. I have attended several seminars. I've got video and stuff of the state's expert in this, describing what you're supposed to do. And if nothing else, we'll take video segments and put it together without a formal guest speaker, but I'm hoping somebody on the staff, maybe from the surveyor's office or someplace else, to be willing to be our guest speaker along with some of that other information. But I believe it's very important for the public to understand what the process is, what the state is encouraging. And I'll tell you the bottom line is they're not encouraging major or minor tweaks to the existing districts. They're saying, listen to your public, take all the public input on new creative ideas. And that's where you start with the criteria of the things that the state wants to see you meet. So this is just not a minor adjustment of existing districts. You're supposed to rethink the whole process, starting with public input. So that's how I want to encourage public input, with the focus on what do we want to see for representation in what I consider to be El Dorado Hills. And that's obviously much more than one district. You know, District 2 is a growing big part of what I consider to be El Dorado Hills, all the way down to the business park and beyond. Blackstone, I consider to be part of El Dorado Hills, but obviously that's District 2. So any ideas on how we address that and do it properly? Do we want 2 equally distributed districts that split up El Dorado Hills with 2 supervisors representing them? Do we want 3, which is what we got now, with maybe 2% to 5% in District 4? I don't know that that's the best situation. So the public's supposed to provide inputs. We're supposed to listen to all that and then go through the state's criteria, try to determine which of the alternatives that are presented best meets the state's criteria. And then it gets to be subjective and judgmental of what you really think makes sense. And a lot of these are tying communities of common interest together. And I read that as rural communities have common interests, more populated areas have common interests. The way the state's recommending, you very much are driven by those communities of common interest. And so we could end up with seeing a lot more representation, just rural areas representation versus more densely populated Highway 50 corridor representation. So I'm not sure where that's all going to end up, but I know where we're starting and then with the criteria. So I want to make sure the public is aware of that. Because again, we're going to be looking for information. We're talking about holding a meeting in September to start that formal process of discussion with the public. But now is the time to start talking to your neighbors and thinking through what we believe is the best representation for El Dorado Hills that meets these state criteria. And we'll be sharing with the criteria with you next month. So as a minimum, we'll share the criteria. So that's kind of what I'm planning on. If anybody has any suggestions for the July meeting or beyond, and we're expecting to be in Fire Station 85, I believe, for our July meeting. We wanted to wait till after June 15th, when presumably the state opens everything up. We've got it reserved, we're on the calendar, but we want to be able to have the public in there. But if the state defers the opening beyond June 15th and beyond July 1st, we'll probably reconsider if we're going to stay with Zoom, because nobody wants to be the mask cop at the door saying you have to wear a mask, right? Nobody wants to do that. I don't want to have anybody in my staff asked to do that. So that's why we're postponing going back to open sessions for community council until such time as the governor gives us the thumbs up. Okay, now it's okay to meet, and no restrictions relative to having to wear masks and other considerations. So with that, any go backs, any other final thoughts or comments, stuff that we skipped over? This was a long meeting, but we had a lot of material to cover entering the fire season, et cetera, right? So appreciate your patience, your time, and your dedication to our community council. And with that, I will adjourn meetings.
One go back real quick.
Yeah.
You just talked about dedication stuff to the community. As you know, and Chief Lilienthal is probably not going to like me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. The El Dorado Hills Rotary Club honors one of the employees of the El Dorado Hills Fire Department as Firefighter of the Year. This year, that honor is going to Deputy Chief Michael Lilienthal, an acknowledgement for his work on the COVID pandemic and response guide. I can tell you personally, Mike has spent hundreds of hours, literally over and above his regular duty as Deputy Chief, focusing on the COVID issue as it affects our county. He has led vaccination clinics. He has been the lead for the county, the entire county, all the fire departments, all the health services as a firefighter representative, but spreading the word, getting protocols in place. So he will be honored Wednesday, May 5th at 7:30 at the CSD by the Rotary Club. And Mike, I wish I had done this a little bit earlier because I see we're down to very few participants left, but congratulations, and it's an honor very well deserved.
Thank you. Very, very kind. And I appreciate that and the kind words. And I just, the 2 seconds that we're ready to get off the phone, but I will say it took hundreds of people, if not thousands, to pull this off. So I was honored to be a part of it, but I really think it's hats off to everybody, including CETA and just so many other people that were out there. So thank you, everybody.
Well deserved,
Awesome.
Michael. Look forward to that. Yep.
Congratulations.
Very good. Congrats. Good recognition. So any other go backs? I think we covered the bases here. So again, have a good evening with left of it. And we'll see you out in the hood somewhere sooner or later at a meeting somewhere, I'm sure. Zoom room or whatever. But take care of yourself. Get your vaccination, I guess, is a recommendation if you haven't had it yet, and proceed accordingly. So thank you all.
Bye.